military. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The amateur ballerina lives in Los Angeles but visited the Russian city of Yekaterinburg in early 2024 to visit family members. During that trip, she was detained by Russian authorities and sentenced to 12 years in prison. She was exchanged for a dual German-Russian citizen, Arthur Petrov, who was arrested in Cyprus in 2023 for allegedly exporting electronics to help the Russian military. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was the Week in Review.
A new report finds climate change skeptics could reach catastrophic levels by 2020. The nation's gratuitously sexual couples announce plans to wait in line at Six Flags. And Grandpa looks absolutely precious in his new baseball cap. Offering a one-stop shop for all your peerless online news summary needs, this is The Onion Week in Review. In response to the escalating violence and rising death toll in Gaza this week, Israel unveiled a new defense system to deflect accusations of human rights violations. Israeli officials praised the new safety structure's ability to intercept an international barrage of war crime allegations and divert criticisms of Palestinian civilian casualties before they can ever hope to make contact with the Jewish state. In other news, a new state law requires doctors to scale an 18-foot wall surrounding abortion clinics. A study finds high school students retain only 1/3 of their obsolete curriculum over the summer, and a man's anxiety is not about to let depression muscle in on its turf.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley,
and Bonnie.
And we've got Bonnie brought in a story about the things getting a little bit lighter on crypto.
Allegedly.
Probably not the triumphant victory that a lot of us crypto fans are hoping for.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they are even doing this at all, like talking about it at all. And I have the memo, the literal memo right in front of me. It might be better for me to pull up an actual article about it, but basically the Department of Justice.
So-called justice?
The Department of Injustice.
Okay, yeah, that sounds better to me, the Department of Injustice. Because they certainly don't exercise any justice.
They don't know what that word means.
No.
They put out a memo, and it was a memo for all department employees. But I'm pretty sure it was like meant to be public, not like leaked or something. And it says from the Deputy Attorney General, and they said the digital assets industry is critical to the nation's economic development and innovation. Thus, as noted in Executive Order, blah, 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 clarity and certainty regarding enforcement policy are essential to supporting a vibrant and inclusive digital economy and innovation in digital assets. President Trump has also made it clear we are going to end the regulatory weaponization against digital assets. And so basically they're saying that they're not the people who are supposed to be the regulators. They said the Department of Justice is not a digital assets regulator. However, the prior administration used the Justice Department to pursue a reckless energy...
Coconut's acting up over something.
Yeah, he hears somebody outside. He'll quit it in a second.
Okay.
So basically, the Department of Justice is acknowledging that the last administration did use the Department of Justice to go after people for crypto. But what's interesting to me is Trump still hasn't freed all the hostages. He literally went to some, I think it was like a crypto conference, and he said that he ended the war on crypto. But how do you claim that you ended the war on crypto when you haven't freed the hostages? And they're on your land, you know. It's not like it's like if there were hostages in Japan or
Do
something.
you think Trump is trying to virtue signal on how virtuous he is?
I think that's the standard for Trump.
I would think so too, because he's He's known to want attention and known to want to make a scene about things. He likes attention. He does have a narcissistic tendency to like that attention.
He's first and foremost a celebrity. He's just using the office of president to boost that status.
And he wants to make it look like, well, look how bad Biden was being, and we're so much better. Biden was going after you guys, and we're declaring we won't, even though they might at some point. And they might just not ever release the people that Biden actually prosecuted, or they could undo some stuff to Jeremy Kauffman. I'm pretty sure they could at least give him some of his money back.
Yeah.
Ban his. I'm pretty sure his business was banned from being allowed to being worked on anymore. I don't remember all the details now. I know that they did a disgorgement of his business, so they took a bunch of money. And they could give him his money back. I wonder if they're going to give Ross his money back. That's still a big question.
That's a good question.
Doubt it.
Well, when government steals your money in whatever case, they're not known for giving things back unless you sue them.
I think there would have to be like a some kind of a settlement, if like a lawsuit and a settlement, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I guess he would have to sue them back. But the other thing is, people were asking about it because he got a conditionless, I don't remember the term Trump used, pardon, as opposed to just
unconditional.
As opposed to just the commutation they were saying he was going to get. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, something might be happening with that.
It basically excuses him of any wrongdoing, like even if he broke the law during these things that he was accused of, that it's fine. And as far as the government's concerned, they're not offended by it.
But apparently some of the pardons that Joe Biden gave out, they're now claiming were illegal. Did you guys hear that? Like, I still want to talk about this. But it's just coming to mind.
I've heard that some of them are basically ineffective, like the Fauci pardon.
Yes, that's one of the ones that were ineffective because of the idea that Biden wasn't in office, like he wasn't in DC at the time that he was supposed to have signed them, and he apparently just signed them electronically, and that's not allowed.
He used an auto pen.
That's
I haven't looked up what that is yet, but I heard that story.
It's really, really weird. So I don't know if that's. I haven't heard any movement on that since that I first heard about it like weeks ago.
I haven't heard anything about that. I mean, I've heard about the auto pen, but then again, who knows if Trump's going to use the auto pen too?
Well, he's the one like complaining about it, so I don't know really, but it would be interesting if they come and say like, okay, Fauci and like Hunter Biden are actually not pardoned. Be interesting.
It would be, because then we could go after Fauci for, the dastardly deeds he did while in power during the COVID pandemic.
My question is, what did he actually do that would be prosecutable? I just honestly don't know. Like, I know I don't like what he did, but what did he actually do that was bad? Like, just went and talked. Creating
the virus in China after the government told him not to do that kind of stuff anymore because it's bad.
Well,
I mean, if you can prove that he created it, then by all means, he should be prosecuted.
The money trail is there.
Sure. Okay, so that's honestly, I just didn't know that. I knew like a government entity created it in China.
Yeah, he made sure the funding happened for it. He wasn't there in the lab making the thing, but he was overseeing it. He knew all the actors involved, and he made sure the funding got there.
Whoa, that's so wild that they would use that same man for like the spokesperson. Like, you'd think you want to like compartmentalize a little more, because I mean, every time people are like, arrest Fauci, I'm just like, just because he went out there and said things, because like you didn't have to listen. But and not that I'm defending him being that way or doing that stuff. I don't like him, but it's just like when people are saying, some people legitimately sound like they are saying arrest Fauci because he told us to get the vaccines, and it's like, well, you didn't have to.
The lockdowns and stuff, but that's not accurate. That was your local bureaucrats and your state bureaucrats and your
employer
and your employer just bullying you into doing something you had a right to say no to.
Yep. A lot of people were like, I had no choice, Bonnie, and I'm just like, I quit my job. I moved like thousands of miles away, or at least 1,000.
Yeah.
Maybe not thousands.
Some people did quit their jobs over it.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what things were like at my old job, but I am pretty sure. In fact, I'm absolutely sure if they came to me and said it's jabber job, I would have walked out that day.
Yeah, that's insane. My little brother was threatened with getting kicked out of the military, and he and only one other person on his base in the Air Force base in around Tucson said no, and they just kept like they would stall things. They'd be like, well, you have to turn in this paperwork saying why you don't want to get it, and then they'd be like, yeah, we didn't get that, and doing all this stalling, and nothing has ever happened to him. Like they're always acting like he's like still waiting on some paperwork, and it's been like 3 years. Yeah. So, and people keep saying stuff like, everyone in the military got the vax because everyone got kicked out. And I'm like, I don't think that's true, because my brother and that other guy did not get kicked out. Just nothing's happened. They just aren't making any official ruling on purpose, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is on that, but I do know it from hindsight on all of that. It seems the best course of action was to try to stay at your job as long as you could and kind of make them make you. Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely fire you in writing, and this is why, is because you won't get the jab. Yeah. And then that way you'd have legal recourse. Otherwise, you kind of left on your own, or whatever happened, or you just took the jab.
I would love to know anybody that did that, but I don't. Like, I don't know anybody that just stayed in their job until they were forced to leave in a state where, because it's like if you got fired in Texas, they can fire you for absolutely any reason, and like whenever you get a job, you sign this paper that says like, you're agreeing that we can fire you for any reason at any time, basically. Like, not a state job, I'm sure, but.
I heard a story from somebody who was in the medical profession. They worked at a hospital, and they were not going to take this shot. And they got forced out, but they played it, they played hardball that way. They tried to stick around as long as they could, and they put up a real fight about it. And they did end up getting the upper hand in the hospital. The office staff was quite concerned about the situation. But I think the way that one boiled out is they just decided they didn't want to go back to that industry because of how it worked.
So they didn't sue? Sorry.
I don't think they did in that case.
So I was lucky enough at the time, while the mandatory shot requirements were rolling out across corporations, I was lucky enough at the time to work for a company that didn't do that didn't enforce the idea of vaccination, so I didn't get vaccinated.
I know in Utah, my parents said it was pretty relaxed.
Yeah, it was.
They said they never had to wear a mask to go into Walmart in Tooele or anything. Or like there were like only a couple restaurants, and they just avoided those restaurants. Like the whole time too. That was not the case in San Antonio. It was like insane.
The only time I was told I had to wear a mask in Utah, I told them I have a medical exemption, so they didn't bother me after that.
Yeah, I drove across the most of the country during kind of the height of all of it, and I did notice that Texas was a lot more weird than the other places that I went.
Do you mean they were bad, like forcing masks and stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know why people think the opposite.
And the people seemed spooked more so than everywhere else.
That's interesting.
Like if I heard anything about it anywhere else, it was just it was halfway polite. But in Texas, it was like really everybody was just being strict and authoritarian about it, and also it seemed like the food shortages and stuff like that hit harder there.
There were legitimately like times where we just like couldn't get toilet paper and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that happened in Arizona too, but we were in a small town, and actually their toilet paper supply held out for quite a while. Like
there was like a week before, or maybe not a whole week. There was like a few days before where I told my boyfriend, I was like, we need to go buy like toilet paper. And he was like, don't be ridiculous like these people on the internet. Like, and it was before like it was a big thing. I was just hearing like little rumblings. And then it was like seriously like a few days later. And he was like, you were so right. I'll never not listen to you again, because there was like no toilet paper or soap like for washing your hands.
Yeah, those were weird times. Right now, we're going to go to the phones because that's what this show is about. And we have an unscreened caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yes, my name is Claire Best, and what's on my mind is the cover-ups of a Keene police officer and his misconduct, James F. McLaughlin, in several cases.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I've been following Robert LaMontagne's case. Robert LaMontagne has had letters written about him in Free Keene. And
this is Rob from Vermont, for the listeners who are aware.
Yes, Rob from Vermont. And Rob has been pursuing getting the records on James McLaughlin, who is the police detective who framed him. And the state has, been covering those up. And some of those were known, to the state well before Rob's case. And Rob's not the only one. There's Father Gordon McRae. I've been contacted by others as well who've been framed by McLaughlin. I've seen a deposition of McLaughlin's in a lawsuit that Father Gordon McRae had against him before McRae's criminal trial. And if he ever gets out of prison, he can pursue that. The deposition from James McLaughlin makes him seem extremely shady and evasive. And, he's really a problem, and I think it's really a problem and a liability problem for the city of Keene, Cheshire County, and the state to continue to cover this up.
Yeah, it sounds like business as usual, sadly enough.
What exactly is being covered up?
The list of James McLaughlin's misconduct.
Okay.
What do they call it here? It's the Lori list?
Yeah, the Lori list.
The Lori list, and then there's this thing called, so the Lori list is the list of corrupt police officers. And so McLaughlin had documented complaints against him by the police chiefs between 1986 and 1988, which was before Rob from Vermont's criminal case in, I think, 1990, and before Father Gordon McRae's criminal case in 1994, and many others. And by law, a law called Brady versus Maryland, which was from 1963, I think, where any exculpatory evidence, any evidence that could be useful for the defense, including like police, records of police dishonesty, have to be disclosed to the defendant. And they weren't disclosed to Rob. They weren't disclosed to Father Gordon McRae. They haven't been disclosed to others. And, in 2018, so the state is at fault, and the state has done nothing about it. And I believe it's a felony to ignore Brady versus Maryland. And so the question has to be, why is the state ignoring this? And in my research, it seems that McLaughlin really had what can only be described as a human trafficking business going on. And by that, what I mean is, definition of human trafficking isn't just sex trafficking. It's also lying to people or coercing them and giving them scripts for the financial benefit of the person lying to them. And it seems that he had quite a business lying to defendants, lying to children or people who were children, and manipulating this and working with civil attorneys and with the newspaper, with Keene Sentinel, to leverage all of this so that he could, this business of this, sexual assault business in a very dishonest way. And that business has become an incredibly popular business in New Hampshire. He was the lead child sex crimes investigator, and he was teaching his tactics to all these other police officers. And so it's sort of grown and grown, and the state is doing nothing about the fact that it has covered up this really gross, abhorrent misconduct.
Imagine what a weirdo you have to be to volunteer, decide, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the person that goes and watches, like, child sex videos and stuff like that. Like, you just have to be a weirdo.
Yeah, you do have to be kind of, I don't know, I guess desensitized or disconnected to be able to watch child porn.
And then there's also the ones that do the stuff like, well, I'm going to pretend to be a 13-year-old girl and text this guy to entrap him.
And that's him. That's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he did something. Yeah, he did something worse, which was in 1995. He pretended to be this 31-year-old single mother called Frances, who put out a classified ad for a companion. And basically, this guy from Maine responded, a guy called Paul Gamache. And he responded, and they started, corresponding. And and then all of a sudden Frances says, that she wants him to teach her 3 children under the age of 12, sex, and, that they like doing all of this naked videotaping and stuff like that.
What is the public benefiting from cops playing these weird freaking games? I knew one person.
None, it's dangerous.
I didn't know him, sorry. Ian talked to somebody in prison that was in prison because he was really poor and he was a gay guy, and this guy asked him over Kik, which is like a messaging app because he's been there for years and it's old, to do something really bad with his son, and really it was a cop, and it's like, what, you're creating a crime
or inducing people to commit a crime so you can catch them.
It's federal entrapment.
It kind of is. It does sound like entrapment for sure.
It's like no one's actually in danger, and I'm not saying like, oh, that makes them a good person if they decided to do it. In that person's case, he said he sat outside of the house for like 4 hours, like sweating, like wondering if he should do it, and all he did was walk into the house and get arrested.
Yeah.
So it's so disgusting.
Well, and that's a pattern, and the pattern goes on now, and this federal entrapment is really dangerous, and the state is covering it up. I mean, the state knew, so in 1998, this guy that was lured down from Vermont, Paul Gamache, he overturned his case at the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and in the ruling in 1998 from the First Circuit, they say that McLaughlin was the government who first sexualized minors. So, and the state has allowed him to continue. And then instead of, when his name was officially put on the Laurie list in June 2018, Gordon MacDonald, the Attorney General at the time, who had him working for him on the St. Paul's investigation, he argued that the Laurie list should remain private. So he had a Laurie list officer working for him, argued to keep the list private. And then in October 2018, McLaughlin, quote unquote, retires so he can get his police pension. And, I would wager that he was allowed to retire as a special deal so that he continued to get his pension and they wouldn't say anything about his Laurie list.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is, because he did a lot of favors for other guys that are doing shady things too. Because it looks like, he was
made a lot of money off it.
He was destroying evidence and doing, all the bad stuff. He already had a bad record in 1988 to begin with.
A violent record too.
A violent record, yelling and using profanity and
using a gun inappropriately.
Yeah.
Wow.
He used a gun to shoot some beer kegs or something. Yeah.
No wonder he's somebody. Attorney General's favorite pet cop.
Yeah.
Guy would do anything, all his dirty work, probably.
Yeah, and each Attorney General has just ignored it and gone to the next Attorney General, and and they continue ignoring it, and so it's like a snowball. Because now I think the liability for the state is pretty huge, because there are dozens, if not hundreds, of cases where they didn't reveal his misconduct, and those are all Brady violations.
And you said that Rob is going to sue him?
No, I don't think I think right now Rob is trying to, I think he wants his case overturned, and
I think Rob would like his name cleared.
Yeah, he wants his name cleared.
Yeah.
And he lost his children. His children were taken away from him at a very young age.
Wow.
And he wasn't given due process, and he hasn't been allowed access to the lie detector test that McLaughlin just said he failed, but he could never see the report himself.
Yeah, that's the way I understand the story too. Thank you so much for the call tonight. If you'd like to call into the show, the phone number here is 603-283-6160. Give us a call. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Yeah, you're a loser.
Wow. So I'm a loser because I don't have health insurance. Is that all you got?
Health insurance, and you don't want to license your vehicles like the guy in Florida too?
So I'm a loser because I don't want to bend over for the state and have them molest my freedom and take my money from me. Boy, you've got a serious issue with priorities, man.
Well, I don't get to pay.
Does it make you feel like a winner when you get a speeding ticket? Does it make you feel like a winner when you're paying property tax?
You betcha.
You're pathetic, dude. Thanks for the call. The government loves bootlickers like Leon.
Yeah.
That's sad, man. I hope that more people out there are not like him, because people like Leon are the problem. People like Leon who just do whatever it is they're told and they feel good about it. That's sick.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Over the last week, US President Donald Trump's raft of tariffs led to tumbles on global stock markets, with shockwaves sent around the world. Stocks recovered somewhat by the end of the week, particularly following moves to pause tariffs for 90 days to give room for negotiations. European leaders welcomed the move to put a temporary halt to the duties. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called the pause an important step towards stabilising the global economy. Pablo Gutierrez reports from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen says Europe remains ready for talks, but only under fair and predictable conditions. The shift comes after the EU announced tariffs on $24 billion worth of U.S. goods. The White House says the extra import taxes for Europe are on hold, as the EU's countermeasures have not come into effect yet. They are scheduled to be collected from April 15th. The EU will still be subject to the U.S. 10% base rate tariff that came into force on April 5th. Pablo Gutierrez, Brussels.
Well, China is the exception to the tariffs pause, now in line for tariffs up to 145%. The Chinese president has called on the European Union to join it in resisting coercion as US trade tensions grow. Xi Jinping spoke on Friday after China raised its own tariffs on US goods to 125%. Ross Cullen reports.
As China's trade war with the United States escalates, Beijing is hoping to work together with the European Union to counter Donald Trump's global tariffs. China and the EU have an uneasy relationship, with EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles already in place, plus Chinese taxes on exports of European brandy. But Xi Jinping has called on China and the EU to jointly, quote, oppose unilateral bullying practices. Ross Cullen, Paris.
Authorities in the Dominican Republic have called off the search for survivors following the roof collapse at a popular nightclub that killed more than 200 people. Ira Spitzer reports.
Breaking into tears at times, the head of the Dominican Republic's Emergency Operations Center said Thursday would be the last day of rescue and recovery efforts at the Jet Set nightclub in the capital, Santo Domingo. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, Jet Set's roof collapsed with hundreds inside. The death toll has now risen to at least 221 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, a local governor, and merengue artist Ruby Perez, who was performing at the time. 189 people were rescued from the club. The focus now shifts to mourning the dead and what will be a closely watched investigation into what caused the roof to collapse. Ira Spitzer.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160 if you'd like to get your thoughts on the air. Are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites?
Yes.
Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
Riley.
And Bonnie.
And Bonner, did you have that story up about them lightening up on some of the crypto stuff?
I do. This is from the Washington Post, and it says the Justice Department scales back crypto cases in line with Trump directives. It says the Justice Department has directed prosecutors to limit their pursuit of certain cryptocurrency crimes. The latest example of the Trump administration pulling back on white-collar criminal enforcement. And it says, in a memo sent to staff members Monday night, which we started reading in the last segment, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said the department will no longer pursue cases that he described as better left to financial regulatory agencies. Instead, prosecutors should focus on investigating people who commit crimes using cryptocurrencies, such as defrauding investors. So sounds like FTX is still falls under that. Dealing narcotics and enabling human trafficking. Blanche also announced the disbandment of the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team, a group of cryptocurrency, cybercrime, and money laundering experts established in 2022 to address the challenge posed by the criminal misuse of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. The team played a leading role in some of the government's largest investigations of players in the crypto sector. I wonder if that was involved with anything with Ian. His trial was December 2022. The Department of Justice is not a digital assets regulator, he wrote. The Trump administration has taken multiple steps to legitimize and loosen regulation of the relatively nascent, is that how you say it, like recent or new, cryptocurrency industry. A sector in which the president and his family have expanded their own financial interests within the past year. Oh, so they're trying to make it seem like, oh, Trump's only doing this for his own good, so he didn't do anything that was worth getting arrested. He just made a crappy coin. I almost said the S word. He just made a crappy coin, and yeah, maybe it went way up and then went way down, which some of them do, and it's like, that is your fault for buying it. I bought Doge at one of its record peaks. I don't go around like, somebody owes me money now.
Yeah, that's the price of buying these meme coins, if you will. They're going to go down at some point, and, know your risks. Know if you throw your money at something, it's going to disappear.
Well, there's a fine line between, marketing something that may or may not work out and an outright deception, fraud. Like in the case of in the early days of crypto, there was something going around called OneCoin, and it was really just a spreadsheet that somebody was keeping, but they were taking in a lot of money from
it wasn't really a crypto.
It wasn't really a cryptocurrency. It never had a blockchain. You couldn't get a wallet for it.
Well,
and so it was just like there was a place you could log on and see what your balance was, and that was about it. And if you ever tried to get your money out of it, you ran into some difficulties.
Yeah, that's totally different. I'm not trying to sound like I'm saying, oh, you can't possibly do a crime because it's, oh, you should have figured out yourself. But
and that's one hard, to the one side of the extreme of it, and then it could be a little more subtle though, and still deception. I think in that if somebody, depending on the promises they make. Involving the coin, but as far as I know, Trump didn't make any promises about the coin, nor did anyone else. They just said, here's a meme coin.
I could be wrong, but I think you're right about that, that he didn't make specific claims. And it's the same thing with that Hawk Tua girl. It almost feels like you shouldn't say that on the air. But that girl, she's never come back to social media, and she was, everywhere for a while because she made a Hawk Tua coin. Yeah. And it went way up. They say pump and dump. It went way up and then went way down. And people were like in her comment section saying she should unalive herself. I don't know if you can't say that on the radio.
You can say suicide on the radio or kill yourself on the radio.
I'm not so sure. Yeah, I guess.
I guess I've been TikTokified or something.
Yeah, you have been. It's just not advisable to go tell people to kill themselves on the radio because
that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people were saying that to her, and they were saying, like, this girl knew what she was doing. She should be prosecuted. And she, just left the internet and has never come back because she made a coin with her name on it. Honestly, in my opinion, it seemed like innocently, and she wasn't making crazy claims or anything. And people are mad that they bought the Hawk Tua coin and lost money. It's like, how much money did one individual put into it? Did you put $100,000 into Hawk Tuah Coin because you're stupid then?
Oh yeah. People make stupid mistakes when they think something's going to go up and be a big investment. And so my advice, I can't give financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor. I would advise don't put money into something you can't afford to lose.
Yep. And most of the
And do your
time,
homework.
none of these things are going to work out unless you somehow magically know about it before real crypto people know about it. And you get some at that point, and then you make some money. But I don't know how you figure out.
My brother accidentally made some money,
Make your own coin.
Not a crazy amount, but my brother accidentally made a little money on the Doge thing, and that's why I was like, oh, I should buy some too. And then I bought it at the literal record peak for many years, or last time I checked. I think it was at least 2 years. Maybe I don't think it's gone back.
At its highest price ever, you mean, or
For a while, it was the highest price ever, but I don't know if it is now.
Like 80 cents or something?
It was when, as Elon Musk said something about it on SNL, and
when they were doing the Robin Hood stuff, and they were buying up the stock of GameStop just to kind of troll the whole, market trading industry.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was hilarious.
That was hilarious. I kind of forgot that's why that whole thing happened. It was like GameStop was being shorted.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, well, GameStop is going under, so let's short it. And then a big group of people were on Reddit, or I think it was Reddit, and they were just like, let's all buy GameStop.
Yep, and they made the price go way up, burning these other people.
Yeah.
And once they figured out a way to stop the GameStop stock run up, they figured out how to stop more people from buying in. Essentially, they all decided to just gang up together and start buying Doge.
That's the Doge.
That's when the Doge price really ran up.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the same time, but it was whenever Elon Musk mentioned Doge on SNL, and I'm pretty sure it was still 2021 because I was so new to crypto. I was like, oh, if he's going to do that, then I'm going to buy some Doge with my Bitcoin. And yeah, so I just transferred some Bitcoin into Doge, and it just all went to nothing.
Yeah, I meant to hold on to some. I had intentions to hold a little basket of crypto from back in the day, but it fell off a boat and. I actually spent it at the very lowest price because I needed to.
I thought it fell off a boat in Lake Winnipesaukee.
Nope.
Okay.
I sold it at a loss.
All right.
Right now we're going to the phones. We have on-screened wireless caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
It actually has something to do with the developments of Doge and whatnot over the last couple months, and I actually thought a volunteer's perspective on this would be interesting. It's kind of going underreported, but there are some plans for reforms to the United States Postal Service. And one thing that was suggested by the Trump administration over the last couple of months was the idea that the Department of Commerce could take over the post office, which strikes me as unusual considering that would be the opposite of cutting down government, because the Postal Service is an independent entity, although it is a quasi-government entity since Congress still structures some of the rules behind it. And I was kind of curious, since you are a voluntarist, what you think of the post office, since it is a completely voluntary entity.
It's not completely voluntary. The guy who runs it wears a military suit.
It is self-sufficient. It's not a government entity, and you are free not to give it money.
It's a military operation.
They stole gold from me
and it's super inefficient.
And gave it to the government as soon as they asked for it.
The federal
and
government
every once in a while, they decide to send my coffee from Arizona to Alabama and then to Puerto Rico for a week, and then finally maybe I'll get it.
Wow, that's insane.
But it's still voluntary.
Not necessarily. I mean,
well,
it's the only game in town when it comes to sending letters.
You choose to use it, and it doesn't receive a dime in taxpayer funds, not one nickel.
I'm not sure that I actually use the mail.
Well, is a monopoly the same thing as 100% voluntary?
It's not a monopoly. UPS will send a letter for you. FedEx will send a letter for you.
I think that they have monopoly on some things, but the thing is, I didn't just go and Google a bunch of stuff about post office right before hearing this. So I mean,
well,
whatever. Maybe you're
right.
The
monopoly has slowly been eroding, which I'm grateful for. But
I don't necessarily think it's a monopoly. As far as Bonnie complaining that the federal government seized gold, I mean, you didn't explain how that happened. Was it in order to seize it? Was it an illegal process? So the federal government is allowed to do that.
Well, I'm not going to do the research on the air, but I'm sure I could find the law that says
No, I was asking
post
her.
office
She
only
said she
gets
had
to
an
do
instance where
this
they
and this.
stole
I don't know
gold.
why you're saying I'm complaining. They stole thousands of dollars of gold from us.
Was it a
I'm
federal
making
order?
up.
Was it a criminal case? They have that right.
It's nobody has a right to steal from somebody else when that person didn't do anything to them. You don't know what rights are.
Sure they do.
No, they do not.
Sure they do. In fact, FedEx and UPS also have to comply with orders if an asset is being seized by the feds.
I just don't know why you're acting like it's like something that I shouldn't talk about or complain about, quote
No, you can
unquote.
complain about it all you want.
What?
But I'm just saying that's not the post office that did that.
Yes,
There's
they
the
did.
federal government.
They literally handed it over to the government, and I know that the government was involved.
UPS would do that too. FedEx would do that too.
I didn't
Any
say they
voluntary
wouldn't.
agency
I didn't
would do
say
that.
they wouldn't. What is your point? Like that I shouldn't complain
It's very
about
bizarre.
it. Whatever.
It's very bizarre when I'm talking about the post office to frame it as if they were the ones that, quote, stole your gold. Although
They're the ones
knowing
that
the
gave it to the
infringement
government.
history,
I
I'm sure
didn't say
had a
that they
good reason
stole
for
it.
doing so.
I didn't say they stole it. You're being stupid.
You did say stole it.
They
Those were
gave
your
it to the
words.
government.
Well, that is kind of stealing it. It didn't
That's not
belong to them,
stealing.
did it?
That's not stealing.
Did it
Did
belong,
it belong to the
So you're saying
government?
It belonged to
Shipping
the.
product.
It belonged to the post office, and they were free to do what they want with it. Is
The
your
federal
claim?
government can seize assets from anybody. if
That's
they're
really
being used
sad
in
that
a
the federal
criminal
government can
enterprise.
do that. It's ridiculous.
And that doesn't mean that they
I
have
don't
the
think
right
it's
to do
wrong.
it.
Knowing Ian Freeman's history, I'm quite glad they stole it.
Okay, well, you can talk to somebody else then. Bye.
Okay, hope he gets traumatized. I hope he can't live his life.
He's literally living like a fantastic life. It's actually hilarious because there are people that are like, oh, I want Ian Freeman to suffer, and he's like eating oranges and like hanging out in the sun and meditating, and he sees me twice a week for like 4 hours at a time. That guy, this person that calls in, I forget his name, but he's done
Stefan.
it multiple times. He is legitimately suffering more than Ian, because if you're just a faggot like him, you are living your life just
I don't know
unhappy
if-
every day.
I can understand the anger and the name calling, but
Riley, please. I can call anyone whatever I want, especially if I'm
Okay.
not using a word I can't use on the air.
got it.
For somebody who says something like that to me, like, please, like, spare
I
me
like
your,
the
like,
word,
moralizing.
And I think it should be
Got it.
brought back because you're not.
That's what
You're not calling him a homosexual.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the correction, Bonnie.
I didn't mean that he's gay, if that was what you're thinking.
No,
Okay.
that's not what you meant.
So, anyways, we were
Yeah,
talking about
that
other
was
things.
a strange call. I don't know. I'm still trying to get around my head around it. That was extremely dumb. The post office is one of the most horrible entities ever created, and they are absolutely doing the things that, spying on the mail, which was one of the big reasons that America didn't want to be part of Great Britain anymore, because the king had a monopoly on that and liked to spy on what people were saying to each other. It caused a lot of problems. And not only that, but they require you to have a mailbox, and you can't put anything else in there. UPS guy won't pick anything up from your mailbox because that's,
Plus, Lysander Spooner.
Somehow, once you put it in your yard and you put the numbers on it, it's kind of property of the post office.
Yeah. Plus, Lysander Spooner tried to create a competing service to the post office and was shut down. So.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Since
Who shut down? They had to pass laws to shut it down because it worked so much better.
Since sometimes people like to call in with something they've like freshly researched and act like they're like dunking on us because it's not like a niche subject I've researched recently, I asked Grok on Twitter, is the post office a monopoly in any way? And it says, monopoly on first-class mail and mailbox access. USPS has a statutory monopoly on delivering first-class mail letters and access to private mailboxes under the Private Express statutes. Then it says it's not a monopoly for packages or express mail, which I didn't think it was. And then it says government-backed advantage. USPS isn't a private monopoly, but a government entity with unique advantages, e.g. universal service obligations, subsidized rates for rural areas, and restrictions. Can't set prices freely. This makes it a quasi-monopoly in some areas, but not others, which is like exactly what we were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Not like we don't know UPS exists.
Yeah. And the guy who runs it, again, holds a military office. So
Who is that again?
he's the Postmaster General, right? It's an actual military position. He's got a uniform. It's kind of ridiculous, but
And the
sometimes he actually
Postmaster
wears it.
General is the person who ordered a friend of ours to testify in Ian's case. So
Yeah, there you go.
it sounds like they can do things like that the government is only supposed to be able to do. So I don't think they're completely voluntary. It's
No,
like a stupid
they're
thing to
definitely
say.
not voluntary for sure. They're stealing gold from you. They're taking property from you. It's just absurd.
Yeah, and to the beginning part of the call where he says Doge was going to do some things to make the post office better, I think just about any suggestion, like give post office workers a nap time, and you're probably going to see an improvement, because I can't see any way they could run things worse than they currently do.
That's funny. They're often pretty rude in there when I go in there to mail letters, and it's like you maybe haven't figured out their exact post office, like way they do things yet, and it's just like they get super frustrated, like you should just know it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
It's like they don't want to do any more than the bare minimum to justify their own existence.
There's this one lady, that called me kiddo.
Huh.
I was like, whatever.
It's just frustrating to me to see people think that the government or the post office is the best way to send mail or do things, because they're government bureaucrats. They work government jobs. There's no incentive for them to do better, so they can just treat you like trash when you go in there.
Exactly. That's why that lady is like the one I'm thinking of in Keene that called me kiddo. It's like you can do act however you want, because like it's not like I'll be able to go be like, let me talk to your manager and get you in trouble. Not that I necessarily would do that over that, but it's just that's the attitude. It's all government workers, and they are basically government workers.
Yeah. Kind of like going to the DMV.
And I didn't realize he was saying that Doge, like the Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, that kind of hung me up for a second too, because we were talking about Dogecoin.
Yeah.
And then he called up to talk about Doge, but he was talking about Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, I thought he was saying that that Dogecoin and the USPS were somehow going to do something together. I was like, what?
Yeah, I was waiting for him to say that post office was going to accept Dogecoin for stamps or something.
Oh my gosh, that would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
Like it specifically Dogecoin, not like Bitcoin or something.
Or they could sell. Oh, they could peg the price temporarily of one stamp to one Doge.
Oh my gosh. That would be insane.
That would be insane. Hopefully Doge doesn't go up to $20.
Would
that would be really bad.
Would that make Doge a stable coin for a while, I guess, while it was doing that?
I don't know. Doge doesn't fluctuate as much as some of the other ones, but it sort of does follow Bitcoin around, but that's what most of them do. It's Doge is dependent on when somebody decides they want to pump it.
Well, I did pull up a story when I thought this guy was going to have a normal conversation with us. From NPR, it says the U.S. Postal Service could face substantial change. What comes next? It's talking about the merger he was describing. It says that last month at the swear-in ceremony for Howard Lutnick, the new Secretary of Commerce, President Trump said he's thinking of moving the Post Service under the umbrella of the the Commerce Department. We want to have a post office that works well and doesn't lose massive amounts of money, which it does. And that's another thing. It's like no regular private company can just continuously lose massive amounts of money without working with the government, aka becoming like a corporation. And that makes it not 100% voluntary.
One of the arguments that I hear is that, well, it's a service. It can lose money. Well, no, it can't, because it's still a company. It still has to pay bills. It still has to, pay for people to drive mail to places.
What do they mean by that? Like, oh, it's a service, it can lose money. I don't understand.
I don't know what they mean entirely by it either. It doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, if you're running a business, whether it's service or giving products, you don't want it losing tons of money, and it should disappear if it is.
Yeah. If you were doing something for actually not a profit, like a charitable service, you would make it as efficient as possible so that you can get back to things that pay. So that doesn't make any sense at all.
So Trump said, we're thinking about doing that. It'll be a form of a merger, but it'll remain the Postal Service. I keep wanting to say post office. And I think it'll operate a lot better than it has been over the years. It's been just a tremendous loser for this country. It's just like, why not, instead of merging it with the Commerce Department, why not delete it, or at least force it to be private and open up the market? That'd be so much better.
I agree. I think it'd be nice to have competition when it comes to mail and first-class packages or things like that.
That'd be like really fun if anybody could just open up a mail company.
Yeah, and you can have your own box.
You could do the Pony Express thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would run it like a utility so that there's like, it's a semi-monopoly sort of situation. Depending on where you live, you may or may not have choices.
I was trying to explain to somebody why, even though I'm so irritated with a certain lady I have to call every time I talk to them about propane, why I don't feel like changing to another company. I was like, even though there are like maybe 2 or 1 other option, they're all going to be just as crappy because they're, like you said, like semi-monopolies.
Yeah.
All the power companies around here. And that's the thing. It's like, depending on how much of a government employee you are, you're a little bit worse than the waitress at a restaurant that can get fired if you're super rude to them. The average one.
Yeah.
Since they can also suck, I guess. But the worst is somebody who's straight up a government employee will not get fired. They don't have a manager in the office. You know, they will do as badly as their heart desires and not care if you're satisfied with the service at all.
That's right, because that's where the incentive is. It's you gotta take away all monopoly privilege to any kind of companies if you want true price discovery in any kind of market.
I heard the guards at Ian's prison joking around with each other. There's this one that takes her job so seriously. And I'm not saying like she takes it seriously and does a great job. She just does all this, like she does everything by the book when other people are more lax and stuff. And the other ones were joking with her. They were like, wait, you don't know how to play solitaire or solitary? I forget how you say it.
I think it's solitaire.
I think you're right too. They were like, you don't know how to play solitaire and you've been a government employee for how long? And she was all like offended. And they were like making that. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're just straight up saying that in front of me. Like, exactly.
Man, that's hilarious that they'd be joking about that as government employees.
I hope she gets more joked on for like taking it too seriously, the stuff she does. Because it's like, when she doesn't actually do anything for anyone, she does nothing but harm people. I want them to be inefficient and lazy. Do you see what I'm saying? But when it's like, oh, I live on the military base and I have to go to the housing office, that's always the example I give because they're the worst people I've ever met at Dugway Proving Ground. And it's like you have to be in there for like 2 hours and this lady doesn't know what she's doing and doesn't care and like won't get back to you. And okay, then it's like something they're supposed to be doing for you and they're inefficient and lazy. That's annoying. But I love when they're inefficient and lazy when their job is to ruin your life.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a feeling from the beginning, from the first time I heard about this Doge, that they were just going to streamline the departments of making life hard.
Recently, it's been reported that their original goal was to cut like 2 trillion. Then they cut it to like 1 trillion, and now it's some amount of billions. So they've cut their goal down 3 times now, or 2 times now.
Right, they keep talking big. I don't see a whole lot.
Me either. They put that little ticker on the debt counter that's like, oh, look what Doge is counting or cutting for us. And I think it was just fake, honestly.
Yeah, I think maybe they found that in the couch at the White House.
Wouldn't surprise me.
They need to really step it up if they want to impress me with some budget cuts, because there's so much just waste, fraud, and abuse going on. What do you think about Doge and their efforts? Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Over the last week, US President Donald Trump's raft of tariffs led to tumbles on global stock markets, with shockwaves sent around the world. Stocks recovered somewhat by the end of the week, particularly following moves to pause tariffs for 90 days to give room for negotiations. European leaders welcomed the move to put a temporary halt to the duties. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called the pause an important step towards stabilising the global economy. Pablo Gutierrez reports from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen says Europe remains ready for talks, but only under fair and predictable conditions. The shift comes after the EU announced tariffs on $24 billion worth of U.S. goods. The White House says the extra import taxes for Europe are on hold as the EU's countermeasures have not come into effect yet. They are scheduled to be collected from April 15th. The EU will still be subject to the U.S. 10% base rate tariff that came into force on April 5th. Pablo Gutierrez, Brussels.
Well, China is the exception to the tariffs pause, now in line for tariffs up to 145%. The Chinese president has called on the European Union to join it in resisting coercion as US trade tensions grow. Xi Jinping spoke on Friday after China raised its own tariffs on US goods to 125%. Ross Cullen reports.
As China's trade war with the United States escalates, Beijing is hoping to work together with the European Union to counter Donald Trump's global tariffs. China and the EU have an uneasy relationship, with EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles already in place, plus Chinese taxes on exports of European brandy. But Xi Jinping has called on China and the EU to jointly, quote, oppose unilateral bullying practices. Ross Cullen, Paris.
Authorities in the Dominican Republic have called off the search for survivors following the roof collapse at a popular nightclub that killed more than 200 people. Ira Spitzer reports.
Breaking into tears at times, the head of the Dominican Republic's Emergency Operations Center said Thursday would be the last day of rescue and recovery efforts at the Jet Set nightclub in the capital, Santo Domingo. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, Jet Set's roof collapsed with hundreds inside. The death toll has now risen to at least 221 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, a local governor, and merengue artist Ruby Perez, who was performing at the time. 189 people were rescued from the club. The focus now shifts to mourning the dead and what will be a closely watched investigation into what caused the roof to collapse. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Ukraine's president claims that more than 150 Chinese nationals are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. The announcement comes after Kyiv said earlier in the week that 2 Chinese citizens had been captured. William Denslow reports from Odessa, Ukraine.
President Volodymyr Zelensky says he has precise data that more than 150 Chinese nationals are fighting with Russia, but claims the real number is far higher. In a social media post, he says this is a deliberate step towards expanding the war and accuses Russia of dragging out the fighting. China claims a neutral stance on the conflict, and its foreign ministry says claims that there are significant numbers of its nationals fighting with Russian forces is unfounded. Beijing adds that citizens are urged to stay away from conflict zones. Zelensky calls on Ukraine's partners to deprive Russia of the ability to continue the war, including through using soldiers from other nations. William Denslow, Odessa.
A US Russian citizen who was jailed in Russia for donating money to a Ukrainian charity has been freed in a prisoner swap. The former ballerina transferred $51 to an organisation that Moscow says was raising funds to provide arms to the Ukrainian military. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The amateur ballerina lives in Los Angeles but visited the Russian city of Yekaterinburg in early 2024 to visit family members. During that trip, she was detained by Russian authorities and sentenced to 12 years in prison. She was exchanged for a dual German-Russian citizen, Arthur Petrov, who was arrested in Cyprus in 2023 for allegedly exporting electronics to help the Russian military. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was The Week in Review.
A report published this week found that a growing number of Americans are being forced to make ends meet by collaborating on songs with Miami-based rapper Pitbull. Citing rising income inequality and a turbulent job market, the report found many U.S. citizens moonlighting as recording artists, mixing drum beats, and guest starring on tracks for the Latin American producer.
It's exhausting, between being part of Pitbull's entourage anytime he's on a club tour and mixing new hooks for him every few nights. I barely see my wife anymore. It's not like I want to do another remix with Avicii, but we really need the money. Okay, sure. I need to get back to work.
In a groundbreaking find, paleontologists this week unearthed the earliest known dinosaur stickers on record. Reportedly discovered in a box labeled Greg's Room, the excavated remains of the reptile adhesives include such stunning specimens as a Triceratops featuring the words Dinos Rock, an Apatosaurus sticker, and the extremely rare puffy kind.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it will cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You will get a special membership badge that is visible in the Odyssey chat room, and there's now a members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today. In the studio tonight is Stu,
Riley,
and Bonnie.
So coming up on April 20th, which will be next Sunday, I'll be hosting a 420 rally at the Concord State House, the New Hampshire State House. So if you are a cannabis supporter and you support cannabis decrim or less government interference with use of cannabis, come out and support the 420 rally. It starts at 420, of course. I don't need to mention that. So next Sunday, 420, Concord State House.
Yep, should be a good time.
Should be.
We're going to go straight to the phones where we've got an on-screen caller. On-screen caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was just listening in the post office thing. I was just going to call in to say, I don't know what that last caller was getting at. I thought that they do accept federal money, like tax money. But I want to say that I'm not against the post office. I kind of look at it much like things like a public park or something like that, or a public drinking fountain or something. I mean, it's there for people to use. It's not always going to be the best thing in the world, but it's there. Like the post office will deliver out to the middle of, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, some small town that like maybe FedEx or UPS is, not going to, deliver out there every day. You know what I mean? So like, I just kind of feel like, and they also outsource their work to other places like FedEx and UPS though too. So I think that, it doesn't really necessarily bother me. And we all pitch in, our tax dollars go to that, I think. I feel like that's not the big issue. The big issue I think is like, our tax dollars go into things like unjust wars, like building weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that. I mean, I feel like that's the main thing we should really be focusing on here when it comes to where our tax dollars are going. And I don't know, tax season, I always feel a little stressed out. I always get worked up. I don't know. I listen to you guys a lot more during tax season, I feel like. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess that's just where I'm going. I don't feel like it's that big of a deal. I
definitely share some of your concerns there. I think just because the post office is a small problem doesn't make it a problem necessarily. And the problem with it for me is just that there's so much wasted, human effort there that could be used for something better. And it doesn't do things of the immoral nature such as war and things like that, which I would rank as being far worse, as well as you, it sounds like. But
thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
I agree with what you're saying.
It's kind of a microcosm though, and it's all sort of the same kind of thing where it's just so much happens that would never happen if people were vigilant and knew what it actually meant, what the ramification would be.
It seems like it is a thing, though, that maybe this is something that's actually not that big of a deal in the scheme of things, but something Trump can act like he's doing something about and make himself look like such a small government.
Yeah, I agree with that
president.
too. The post office is such an easy target.
Yeah, it is. So the caller brought up that, the post office and public parks are just plans, to be not as good, but they're there. And I don't know, I guess for me, I would suggest that maybe we should actually expect better from public parks, quote unquote public parks. But when when you have something run by the government, we have something called tragedy of the commons where, it's public good, so therefore no one takes care of it. Instead of people taking pride in the area in which they live and saying, we're going to keep this park clean, we're going to make sure the equipment's running smoothly, the drinking fountains are clean and usable. So
yeah, and sometimes you do see a well-kept park, but it's almost always a community effort and not because the government runs it.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Let's see. We were talking before about various regulations and hopefully them easing up on some crypto stuff. I don't know if you finished with that
No, not
story?
really, actually. We have more to say about it, about the Justice Department easing up on crypto prosecutions. So Trump vowed as a candidate, this is from the Washington Post, by the way, and the article is Justice Department scales back crypto cases. And it says, President Donald Trump vowed as a candidate to ease restrictions on crypto companies, shoring up his support and donations from tech investors and digital asset executives who said they had been persecuted by Biden administration efforts to regulate the market. It's kind of funny and interesting because a lawyer told me that they couldn't accept Bitcoin as a lawyer because their board of ethics, like lawyer, New Hampshire, I don't know if this is like the actual name of the people, but they said something like a New Hampshire Board of Lawyer Ethics Committee, something like that.
Uh-huh.
I'm just making up that name. They had decided recently when we asked about them taking crypto that it was unethical to accept crypto.
What?
And I didn't think about those two in connection, but like apparently the president can accept it for candidate donations. No, I'm not saying he shouldn't be able to. Just kind of like funny. Like that seems so randomly decided. Oh, that would be unethical. Why? And that doesn't mean the lawyer can't. If they decided to, they could. But they were like, we want to play it safe. Like stay on the safe side of things.
That's so weird.
Seems like they chose the wrong direction because they didn't know that the next president would be Trump and that the next president would decide to ease up on prosecutions of Bitcoin-related things.
Yeah, that's true. At the time, it was not a favorable atmosphere for crypto.
Like the outlook was really bad for all of the Biden administration time. The whole time he was the president, it just seemed like, oh, things are just going to keep getting worse and worse for crypto people. And this is encouraging what Trump is, the tune Trump is playing. I just wonder if it actually means anything. It kind of feels ridiculous, and the idea that it means anything, that he's saying that he'll ease up on prosecutions while my husband's in prison for selling Bitcoin. You know, it's like you should, if you really ended the war on crypto, which is exactly what he said, a quote, he should probably free the hostages and also end the prosecution of Roger Ver and the Samurai Wallet people. I feel like there's a really good chance that the Samurai Wallet and the Tornado Cash people might get their stuff dropped because Tornado Cash is Mixer, and we're going to get into it, but this memo, they specifically mentioned that they want to ease up on mixers.
Yeah.
Crypto mixers.
For anybody who doesn't know, a crypto mixer is something that will take your transaction and it will mix it up with a bunch of transactions so that you can't tell one from the other. It's an effective way of making crypto more anonymous.
So, for example, if I were to pay Bonnie rent money, the transaction would be sent to a mixer, and then her address would get it, and nobody would know that was my address who sent it?
Yeah, well, they would see the money leave. They would see the crypto leave your wallet, and then they would see that it went to the mixer. And then they would be able to guess from one of 10 or one of 100 different recipients on where you sent it. And that's essentially how mixing works. And they were trying to shut these down under Biden.
Sounds like they are effective then.
Yep. And a lot of cryptocurrencies have that kind of protocol built into, like, right into the blockchain, such as Dash. And they haven't focused on that for years, but they used to have a private send feature. I don't know if they still do, but that would essentially run it through a mixer.
I did not know that.
Yep.
I didn't know that either.
Yep. And there was, I don't know if it's still alive, but there was one called Navcoin that had, you could select the amount of mix-ins you wanted for every transaction you sent. So, like, it would just, obviously if you wanted it mixed with more transactions, then you would have to pay a higher transaction fee. And it was just all automated right on its own blockchain. It was really cool. Right now, we're going to the phones. We've got Jet. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Well, every time I use some CBD oil, I feel like I go through a mixer.
What does that mean?
Okay. It doesn't mean anything. It's just goofy. Okay. So I'm looking at the U.S. debt clock, and at usdebtclock.org, you were talking about that, and it's up to 36,700 billion. But they also added the Doge clock in there too, of 314 billion. Anyway, I thought I'd just pass on this little tidbit that back in 2004 or 5, I can't remember one of those. I remember they were complaining about the national debt being 6 trillion, and now it's 36 trillion. So after 20 years. Anyway.
Yeah, I remember it was a really big deal when it broke into the $1 trillion range, and it was like, wow, trillion. It was like the first time that number was really in the lexicon.
I remember the left complaining about the national debt back in the day, but when Obama came to power, they just stopped complaining about it and stopped caring.
Well, as you as you might have heard before, I'm one of those people who hasn't contributed to the federal mafia for a long time. And of course, my feeling about the IRS is, well, I got to throw in this too, that I have to admit, I did work for the state and federal government back in my 20s. And after witnessing a lot of the I don't know, just the waste and abuse of funds and that kind of thing, I just had to get out. But,
do you mind sharing like what kind of, like, you don't have to, I guess you might not want to do that. I just wanted to know what kind of thing you did and what kind of experiences you had. Or maybe you don't have to tell us what kind of thing you did, but what kind of experience was it working for the state?
I was a manager for the computer systems. You know, well, I won't say which one or whatever, but it was all in managerial for the computer functioning of the various agencies and stuff. So we are in the last few days of the tax terrorism season, and I don't recall any one particular person being held up like they normally do, kind of tacked against the wall. Have you heard of anybody in particular, some celebrity or...
Oh, does that happen every year?
Individual? Yeah, every year they pick out somebody and say, if you don't send in your taxes, this can happen to you.
Wow.
No, I haven't heard one of those
I haven't heard one
for a while.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that either.
I don't watch the news, and I recommend nobody does.
Well, that's what most people live under, is this fear. And I keep asking people who say that I have to pay my taxes to don't ever say my taxes.
Right.
You stop saying that.
I always thought that was really weird too when people call them my taxes. Like, you have taxes? Isn't that just something imposed upon you?
So I Googled just tax case and clicked news to see if there's anything, and it says CryptoPunk seller pleads guilty to tax evasion on $13 million NFT profits. Kind of a big thing.
Okay, there's one.
Well, typically they also find some type of celebrity. You know, I can't remember what that fellow's name was a few years back, but of course, and of course, anyone
Shakira
who
was
is
one.
standing on the hill.
Well, Shakira was a tax case from Spain, so I guess it doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah, but if
there's Wesley
I tell
Snipes.
people that
Is that his name? Sorry.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
And there are only two types of people. I try to keep letting people know that that the IRSs will come after, and that is number one, if you have enough assets, if they have something to steal from you, and number two, if you're vocal about the concept that no one, in fact, does owe taxes. You don't owe taxes. They are imposed upon you, but only in your mind, because you cannot find any type of obligation anywhere to show that you owe anybody anything as far as taxation. It's quite a wonderful mind game that they play. The idea that if they can somehow get you into this mindset that you are need to contribute to this organization, or you will be brought in front of the halls of justice. But speaking of taxes, how about, we're coming into the Easter season here, and a lot of people want to talk about how Jesus talked about giving over taxes and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And there are only two types of taxes that are being referred to there. One is the Romans' head tax, and the second one is called the temple tax. And both very, very small amounts, but still the idea that somehow people have also interpreted that Jesus has said to pay taxes is another travesty. It's
I I agree with you
Would
now.
like me to go into it?
I think that another way to look at the give unto Caesar what is Caesar's thing, actually an old, I guess you'd say, host, Matt, he said a way that some people look at give unto Caesar what is Caesar's is he's just saying like, well, this is just like money that has to do with the man who created it by fiat, but like God's currency is a different currency. It sounds obvious now to me, but he wasn't necessarily literally saying like, oh, give your money to Caesar. He was just saying like, oh, you know.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, it's got Caesar's face on it. I guess it must be his.
Something like that.
Well,
could be an interpretation.
Let me give you a really good. Let me give you the perspective from a dedicated disciple of Christ, which is myself. Okay. The Bible speaks in many different places about all things are God's. They were created by Him, for His purpose, that type of thing. Now, logically, if anyone understands very simple logic, the word all is very powerful. And if all things, are His and created for Him, then nothing is Caesar's. And the best way I like to illustrate that is by taking out the $100 bill and repeating, give to Ben Franklin what is Ben Franklin's, and to God's what is God's. Ben Franklin was never a president. He was part of the Congress, but never the initial Congress, but never a president.
No, I imagine that would have been too boring for him.
The way to think about it is that Jesus is really cool guy. I mean, he knows what these people are thinking. He knows how to twist their words into to make them go quiet. And in this particular case, when he says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, he's speaking to his disciples as well by saying, hey, we know that nothing is Caesar's. So if nothing, then give to God's what is God's. And of course, there's no tax that they put on each other except the temple tax, which was another contribution. It was referred to as a tax, but people were not thrown in jail or harmed in any way if they didn't contribute a certain amount to the temple. I mean, the whole idea was to, they didn't have electricity back then, but the whole idea is to supply the Levites and the other workers of the religious community, because they didn't have any source of income on their own. So what I'm saying is a lot of people get this stuff mixed up and they try to justify it one way or another, but you will find no obligation, whether biblical or legal here in the U.S., for anyone to contribute in a taxation form. And worst of all, think of this statement, that these people who want to collect this tax are putting you in fear. And so the way I look at it is those who are living under this regime, you're living in fear of the very people that you have hired to serve and protect you. And I said, if there's nothing wrong with that in your brain, spend a little time thinking about it. I don't know. It's just, you can tell it kind of gets to me every tax season.
Yeah.
It's also the season of sacrifice, according to Mark Passio, who talks about all these Satanist groups and how every year from March 20th to May 1st, there's some kind of huge thing where people die. There was already the earthquakes in Thailand, and that could totally count. That happened during the season of sacrifice.
Interesting.
This year, and many things. There's too many things to be a coincidence that have happened during that time period, which have all these like symbolic things around them that are similar. One of them's like the Columbine shooting, and a whole bunch of other shootings happened during this time, and it happens every single year without.
Yeah, Waco, Oklahoma City. Also, those were on. I think those were on 4/19 and 4/20.
Huh.
Wow.
Interesting. I wonder if Oklahoma City bombing was an MK Ultra thing.
Oh, I think so.
It was partially that, yes.
Okay.
But I just think it's
definitely not as described, and there were more than one bombs that went off that day. Go ahead and look into it. They're lying to you about that one as well. Thanks for the call, Jet. If you'd like to call in and get your thoughts on the air, the phone number here is 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Over the last week, US President Donald Trump's raft of tariffs led to tumbles on global stock markets, with shockwaves sent around the world. Stocks recovered somewhat by the end of the week, particularly following moves to pause tariffs for 90 days to give room for negotiations. European leaders welcomed the move to put a temporary halt to the duties. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called the pause an important step towards stabilizing the global economy. Pablo Gutierrez reports from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen says Europe remains ready for talks, but only under fair and predictable conditions. The shift comes after the EU announced tariffs on $24 billion worth of U.S. goods. The White House says the extra import taxes for Europe are on hold as the EU's countermeasures have not come into effect yet. They are scheduled to be collected from April 15th. The EU will still be subject to the U.S. 10% base rate tariff that came into force on April 5th. Pablo Gutierrez, Brussels.
Well, China is the exception to the tariffs pause, now in line for tariffs up to 145%. The Chinese president has called on the European Union to join it in resisting coercion as US trade tensions grow. Xi Jinping spoke on Friday after China raised its own tariffs on US goods to 125%. Ross Cullen reports.
As China's trade war with the United States escalates, Beijing is hoping to work together with the European Union to counter Donald Trump's global tariffs. China and the EU have an uneasy relationship, with EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles already in place, plus Chinese taxes on exports of European brandy. But Xi Jinping has called on China and the EU to jointly, quote, oppose unilateral bullying practices. Ross Cullen, Paris.
Authorities in the Dominican Republic have called off the search for survivors following the roof collapse at a popular nightclub that killed more than 200 people. Ira Spitzer reports.
Breaking into tears at times, the head of the Dominican Republic's Emergency Operations Center said Thursday would be the last day of rescue and recovery efforts at the Jet Set nightclub in the capital, Santo Domingo. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, Jet Set's roof collapsed with hundreds inside. The death toll has now risen to at least 221 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, a local governor, and merengue artist Ruby Perez, who was performing at the time. 189 people were rescued from the club. The focus now shifts to mourning the dead and what will be a closely watched investigation into what caused the roof to collapse. Ira Spitzer.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. Let us know what you're thinking about. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley,
and Bonnie.
And we're going to go straight to the phones. We've got an unscreened caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hello? Just finishing up my taxes.
You have taxes?
Can you be claimed as a dependent? Yes.
I don't know.
There, I'm done. I fulfilled my end of the social contract.
Oh, you just put yourself as a dependent on your mom? Is that what you're saying?
Hey, Jet, if you don't like taxes, you can always renounce citizenship. God never gave you the right to United States property, right? Am I right, guys?
Who is that?
I can't even make sense out of that statement.
He thinks that the United States is a human being that owns property.
It's a collective.
Nope.
Collectives can't own property.
Well, who are the people in the collective? That's the thing.
Co-ownership.
Who are the collectives? Who are the people in the collective? I need them to be able to be like up on a stand testifying if it's the United States versus Bonnie Freeman one day. Who are they?
All the citizens.
That's ridiculous.
That's
all the citizens together cannot own something that is not possible.
So wouldn't it be
what
logical
about an HOA,
then?
Bonnie? Who owns an HOA?
If there are people you could point to. If I was in an HOA, I'd be able to tell you the many people that were in it.
The citizens.
It's not just all of the citizens, you idiot. It's all of the citizens of the United States don't own somebody's HOA in Texas.
Yes, they do. They have a vote on the rules that.
What I'm saying is there's a group of people. There could be like 20 people in an HOA, and then you would be able to point to them. And if they brought something against me, one of their representatives or all of them could show up in court against me. But that's not possible with the United States of America, and it's not all of the citizens of the whole United States of America owning an HOA. That's not a thing.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that Skeeter probably thinks that video they showed us in school about I'm just a bill on the Capitol steps or whatever. He probably thinks that that's actually how things work.
Yeah, he probably does.
Who cares? All I know is that taxation is just. It's verified and given as a power to the government.
I guess you like being extorted from, dude.
I know it's just that.
No, it's not extortion. I'm glad to pay for the services that they offer.
What services are they offering you?
National defense for one.
Why do you want to overpay for things?
Hospital, roads.
Why do you want to overpay for roads and things that...
The roads are in horrible shape.
United States Post Office. Should I go on or?
Why are you so happy to pay for things that are done badly and that you could be paying less for, and also pay for the things you don't use? Like you don't have children in schools.
This is why we can't have nice things.
I'm not really paying for it.
This is exactly why we can't have nice things.
Isn't it?
Because people like Skeeter think the social contract is real and that we should all buy into it.
No, the social contract isn't real. It's just a theory.
We should all strive, not settle, but strive for mediocrity. Is that about right?
Social contract is valid.
No,
when
not. It's just an idea.
To each citizen as a privilege, right? You didn't. Again, are you born with a right to land here? Tell me.
I'm born with the right to try to be left alone on a piece of land.
No, on what piece of land? It's already all land in the world is already owned by some type of collective.
Not rightfully.
What's not false? Well, pretty much. Why don't you find land that you can homestead?
There's no such thing as pretty much when we're talking about rightfully versus in effect. Like in effect, are they going to kill me if I try to do some things? Yes, but that doesn't mean they rightfully own anything.
You're a co-owner who is given that privilege at birth.
If I'm a co-owner, why can't I do anything I want with the White House?
Where's my land if I was given that privilege at birth?
Co-owners need consensus. You need the consensus based upon whatever rules set in the collective to make a decision. You can't just go off and do things with.
That's obviously not how things go. That's obviously not how things run. There's a small minority of people doing things with a bunch of stuff they're claiming belongs to them, and you get no say. There's no such thing as a collective of what happens to the White House, a consensus of what happens to the White House.
Those are
You're
the
stupid.
representatives elected by the general public.
Hey, what do you think about the Declaration of Independence?
If I don't know. That's secession. That's theft, technically, isn't it?
So
no, it's not theft.
The way I see it, they kind of wrote the Declaration of Independence to set up this, as why they wanted to set up America as its own self-sovereign country. And the idea was you need a government to defend individual rights, and if it doesn't do that, it's time to alter or abolish. And
you have all the individual rights you need. The market's not going to protect your property for you like the government does.
The government has protected monopoly privilege to the extent now that I can't reasonably get property of my own.
You know what? Every owner is going to be a monopoly. Every owner of property is going to be a monopoly. Every owner of a piece of property is going to be their own government.
You're telling me that if I buy a piece of land that I can prevent other people from buying land around me? Because that's what a monopoly would do.
What? No, it depends how you define the piece of property. It depends how you define the piece of property, right? If you're defining the piece of property as the thing you own, and the thing outside of it as not part of your property, no, you can't. This is under libertarian framework. But here's the thing: you don't have a higher claim than the collective, right? You never did. You didn't fight the revolution to take.
I don't think the collective.
Nobody alive did.
Only individuals can.
Who cares? It was transferred to them rightfully, just like in your framework, wasn't it?
There are people that are living here whose ancestors did not fight in the revolution. Most people.
Yeah, but they got permission from the collective to reside here.
No, they didn't. When
the
were
Native
you ever
Americans
asked?
didn't give permission for people to reside here. They just started residing here.
People here illegally. Not that I'm wanting to get into that whole conversation, but the thing you're saying is just false.
I was just referring to generally the citizens and the people that are legal that didn't have ancestors that fought here in the revolution.
When were you ever asked if anybody could move here? When were you ever asked if a person who even legally came here from the Philippines, when were you ever asked if they could come here? I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just simply saying that what you're saying is demonstrably false. I hate that word. You can demonstrate that it's false. I've never asked. And if nobody can represent me if I tell them you don't represent me. Nobody represents me but me. Unless I hire a lawyer.
Yeah, they do represent you.
No, they don't.
No. All the actions the United States takes.
No, they don't. Dude.
You.
No, they
Bonnie
don't.
already said that she represents herself. I can't represent her.
Even though you didn't vote for any of these.
Just because somebody claims that they represent me, then they represent me, because then, like Riley just said, he can just claim he represents me and then he rightfully represents me. That's stupid. That's not how things work.
Let me ask you something, Bonnie. Let's say you owned a share.
How about you just say something about something anyone else says instead of just going on and on and on these stupid conversations? It just gets dumber and dumber, less about anything. You don't reply about anything when somebody makes a good point. You're just like, well, let me ask you a totally unrelated thing. It's boring. I don't care. You're so dumb.
You guys aren't making any good points, right? You guys are just.
I just did. Okay, then reply to this. Why is it that Riley can't just say he represents me and then make all these decisions for me in a hospital?
Because he's in order to fully own yourself, in order to fully represent yourself, you have to be on unowned land or land you fully own.
I disagree with that.
Collective property. You are obligated to follow the rules of the collective.
No, I'm not.
That does not answer my question at all. Why can't Riley say that he represents me and go to my doctor and make medical decisions for me?
If you don't like it, you can vote to change the rules.
You're just impossible to have a conversation with, and it's boring and stupid.
You're talking over me.
No, you won't answer a question.
You're talking over my
You brought in a topic and I'm pressing you on it and you can't say anything that makes any sense because you're dumb.
He does this every single show.
He literally does this every single show.
Every single show.
Answer me why Riley can't go to my doctor and say, I represent Bonnie and I want her uterus removed. He claimed to represent me.
I think this is a valid question.
Hold on. In order to represent yourself fully, You need to own the land you are on.
That has nothing to do with my question. You just sound stupid. You just sound stupid. People can't represent themselves unless they own land. That's stupid.
Because the owner or owners have jurisdiction on the land you are on. Then you cannot represent yourself fully.
You can't just say, well, I own the land that somebody's renting this house from so I can get their testicles removed.
Why would I represent myself when I'm already me? Wouldn't I just present myself?
Well, I think you can hire somebody who represent you, and that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
I've definitely...
I don't see how one could represent themselves. You just are yourself.
Yeah.
That's not representation.
The sad fact is you implicitly condone all the actions of the collective because you don't leave when you have the opportunity to.
I was born
ask
here.
Roger Veer. Ask Roger Veer how that works.
What's that? Oh, but he earned income.
He didn't do it right. He didn't leave right.
So
you can always leave, but also you can just do it wrong.
He stayed. In order to make his fortune, he needed to still be a United States citizen, or else he would have left before he made it. And
So stupid. You should have the right to make. You have the right to make money and leave an agreement that you're supposedly in, and you're saying that's just as easy as just leaving, and somebody we can point to tried to leave and they didn't let him. It's just pointless to have this conversation with you.
Go see if you can make money on the high.
So why can't Riley go request or claim to represent me and do whatever he wants?
Say that again. I can't hear you when you're talking over me.
Then let's not have a conversation. Just
anything I said.
Because I've been asking you this question since the beginning. I'm not talking to him anymore. Like, you guys can talk to him if you want. It's pointless.
Yeah.
So don't talk to me then. Let me ask Stu. Right.
You got an overall point.
Everything
here.
I said right.
No, almost
Roger
none of what
Veer.
you said is right.
Okay, name one thing I said that wasn't right. You're just talking generalities because you don't know what you're talking about.
You said something about.
Oh, seriously? That's what you're going to do when somebody's talking instead of letting them answer your question, you dumbass?
I'm waiting. Hey, hey, guess who else I destroyed? I destroyed Paimon. I called into his show. He called me an IRS agent.
I don't really care who you are. You sound like an idiot when somebody's talking and answering your question. You just go duh over them. You sound stupid. Like, this is horrible radio. Like, you shouldn't be allowed.
That's a horrible call, and that's the end of that one. You can't just call in here, ask a question, make a bunch of noise, and then skip on to a different topic. That's not how conversations
No,
work.
it's not. And Skeeter does this every time he calls into the show. He skips around and dances around like he thinks he knows what he's talking about.
I think that they stopped sending Scott the Bigot to call in and say bigoted things because they're like, wait, this is actually like backfiring on us because they've named our agent Scott the Bigot, and they point out that he's being a bigot every single time he calls, and it didn't do the effect that they wanted. Like, the government wanted him to call in, starts talking about how Jews run the world and us to just let him talk, and then, Free Talk Live looks like an anti-Semitic show or whatever. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just Jews, it was like everybody. And then he just randomly stopped calling in one day. Either he died or he was fed, and they were just like, this is doing the opposite of what we want. When are they going to learn that about Skeeter? Because we just make him look stupid. We make people who believe in the social contract theory that the collective around me gets to make decisions about my life just because somebody else fought in the Revolutionary War 200 years ago.
Yeah. The
Looks
Constitution is of no effect anyway. I didn't agree to it.
Yeah, and when you're trying to hash out the ideas of what's right and wrong, it's really not that complicated. The truth about these things is pretty simple.
And what about gypsies? Why can't they represent themselves just because they don't own land? It's ridiculous.
That's a really good point. I don't know where he was going with that because it was so ridiculously dumb. But he also believes that you can own land collectively, which is stupid.
Yeah, it is kind of ridiculous.
So I think that's kind of what he was trying to say. He was trying to say that, you collectively own it. You can't choose to do anything with it or anything like that.
But you collectively own it. You have to get the consent of all the collective.
So you don't own it in any definition of the word about the word ownership, but yet you own it, and therefore you can't complain, but you also don't get any of the rights that come with ownership. It's stupid. Right.
And there's plenty of land to be owned. They've they've messed up the market by allowing monopoly privilege over the situation. So you got major corporations with a ton of money just buying up properties. Nobody lives in them. They're just kind of like bank accounts. And
we've all lived in Utah, and
a
it's
lot
like
of them not even owned by Americans at all.
Oh,
yeah.
I think
that's true.
The amount of Chinese-owned properties in America that just they might have a caretaker or something, but they're just acting as a bank account is astounding.
Apparently, the same thing's happening in England with like Qatar and Pakistan owning most of London.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that is interesting.
I just heard about that today.
Well, we have these super rich oil sheiks.
Or it might not be Pakistan,
they
but
gotta
definitely
buy something. Why not buy London?
Yeah.
Why not buy America?
Yeah,
makes sense to me.
Even if it wasn't a foreign government, because I don't really have a favorite government, the United States government owns, I've heard, 96% of Utah. And it's like, I have wandered where there was no other soul around me for at least like 50 miles in every radius. And it feels so nice. It's so great. And it just blows my mind to think that you couldn't just start doing something if you had the tools and the money to do it there. You'd get arrested.
Yeah, so much.
When they found you.
So yeah, the government owns most of the land out west, and it's really sad that federal lands are owned, exist. Period. Like, why can't private actors buy it up, or why does it have to be claimed by anybody? Why couldn't we just leave that land unclaimed?
Yeah, honestly, I would love, like, my choice in that would be for it to just be unclaimed, unless like somebody was able to go and do something with it. I agree with Peakless Mountaineer and Richie Rich used to always argue, and I agree with Peakless on this, that if you want to say you own something, you have to be actually homesteading it and doing something with it. But
mixing your labor with it, essentially.
Yeah. I like that idea, because it's like the idea that somebody could just go and draw a circle around a whole giant beautiful mountain in Utah and say, I own this and I don't want to do anything with it, is dumb. But if you can go and get like 10 acres and do a bunch of cool stuff on it and be taking care of it, and it doesn't have to be a specific thing you're doing with it. You could even be like destroying it. I just think there's not that much incentive to do that, so you probably wouldn't,
Yeah, I've heard Richie's take on this argument, and I think it's one of the more intellectually stimulating ones that I've come across, because a preserved piece of land in its unspoiled condition is a thing to behold, and if all of it went away, that would be a sad thing.
Yeah.
Well,
and I can't think of a way to provide for that and allow for individual ownership of property.
I felt like the answer was pretty obvious in my opinion. It's like you would be mixing your labor with it. You would be maintaining a border and like defending it. So if you made a border around something and you had the resources to kill somebody on site who wanted to go there and destroy it, like they would always get to this point in the argument where Peakless would be like, well, what if I came there with like fire torches or something like that? I don't remember exactly. And I just wanted to go into your nature preserve and destroy it. And Richie Rich would be like, well, I should be able to kill you. And the thing is, you should, but that would be your mixing of labor. You'd be maintaining a border and defending it. So I just don't really think that Richie Rich had a really good point. And also, I just don't really think a whole bunch of people be doing that. It's not profitable.
No. Well, just because it's not profitable doesn't mean it's not of value either.
I don't think that it's not of value. I just think that it wouldn't be like happening. Like it wouldn't be like, oh, and now 96% of Utah is just everybody just went there and created nature preserves. You see what I'm saying? I think it'd be few and far between is all. So like it wouldn't be that of an affront to somebody like Peakless who would want to go destroy it. I don't think. I hope not.
Plus, desert environments are more, I guess, I don't know if I want to use the term fragile, but they're very different than, the climate back east. They're dry, they're hot sometimes, hardly any water. So there really isn't much incentive for someone to go out and live in the middle of the desert, typically. Now, if you can find a way to get water to you, that's a different story.
I remember when that big statue, that metal statue, was found in the middle of a basically untouched desert in Utah. and people were thinking like an alien sat it there, and then a whole bunch of other statues were found other places on the planet. It was in a basically, like I said, untouched, preserved area that nobody went to. And then when that statue was discovered, people figured out where it was via like Google Maps, and a whole bunch of people were going. And that's ultimately why a group of activists went and took it down and got rid of it, because it, like, nobody goes there anymore. It's not like people are still to this day going there and destroying the environment. It's like there's like nothing there for people, so they're just not going and destroying the environment. They were when there was that statue there, so those activists went and took it away. But
yeah, and I think there's voluntary ways to deal with, pretty much everything. It just takes a little extra thinking, and people tend to get worked up before they think calmly and rationally about things.
I definitely think there's a too far where it's like we should just put condos where Zion National Park is. I would hate that.
I would too, because then, people come to Zion National Park to enjoy hiking, to enjoy the beauty. There's a really intense hike that people like to go on called Angel's Landing, and some people like to go up and see the views, and if people have condos to ruin those views,
that would suck.
It would suck.
That would really suck. 'Cause I just think that there would be enough demand of people who wanted it to stay in a national park that it could just be a private park.
Yeah.
A nicely run private park.
Yeah, I remember there was some local political argument in, I think, St. George, Utah, where they have this gorgeous mesa on one side of the town. So you should have like a sharp, flat line of horizon on one side of the town where the ground rises up, and then it's just flat on top.
Wow.
And people wanted to build their houses up there, but they had like city ordinances preventing it for a long time, because they just wanted to keep it looking the way it was. It was kind of,
I vaguely remember something like that. I can't remember what happened in that case, but
now there's houses up there.
Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your view.
Yeah, and it's all an aesthetic thing. So I guess, now you just got to go find a different mesa to look at, and that's the answer to that. That's okay with me too. So, maybe you might not be able to protect the specific piece of land and keep that one pristine, but maybe you can go find another one that's pretty darn close and do it there.
If you have a goal and you are determined to make a thing happen, you can make a lot of things happen that you really want to see happen. It's like, if that's like the 50th thing on your list of things you want to see happen, like that mesa be untouched, maybe you're not going to make it happen.
Yep. I think you had more from this story about crypto regulations.
So this story is the Department of Justice came out with a memo recently where Trump directed them, I think, to stop prosecuting certain certain cryptocurrency situations, because it's like, you running a mixer isn't a crime, so I'm not going to say certain crimes. They were telling them to stop criminalizing certain cryptocurrency human action. And it says, the Biden administration ramped up scrutiny of the industry after a series of collapses that harmed customers. That's a lie. They were just doing crap before FTX. It says, including the implosion of the fraudulent cryptocurrency exchange FTX in 2022. Why were they already going after LBRY and Ian Freeman then?
Yep. Yeah, they've been on this for a while.
Yeah, that's incorrect. Sorry, Washington Post. But it says it resulted in the loss of more than $8 billion in customer deposits, which is true.
Yep.
Well, the Washington Post is a reputable news source, after all.
Very good writers over there, from what I hear. I wouldn't ever read them for fun, though. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
Protection. Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom.
Filibuster. Police state.
It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Over the last week, US President Donald Trump's raft of tariffs led to tumbles on global stock markets, with shockwaves sent around the world. Stocks recovered somewhat by the end of the week, particularly following moves to pause tariffs for 90 days to give room for negotiations. European leaders welcomed the move to put a temporary halt to the duties. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called the pause an important step towards stabilising the global economy. Pablo Gutierrez reports from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen says Europe remains ready for talks, but only under fair and predictable conditions. The shift comes after the EU announced tariffs on $24 billion worth of U.S. goods. The White House says the extra import taxes for Europe are on hold as the EU's countermeasures have not come into effect yet. They are scheduled to be collected from April 15th. The EU will still be subject to the U.S. 10% base rate tariff that came into force on April 5th. Pablo Gutierrez, Brussels.
Well, China is the exception to the tariffs pause, now in line for tariffs up to 145%. The Chinese president has called on the European Union to join it in resisting coercion as US trade tensions grow. Xi Jinping spoke on Friday after China raised its own tariffs on US goods to 125%. Ross Cullen reports.
As China's trade war with the United States escalates, Beijing is hoping to work together with the European Union to counter Donald Trump's global tariffs. China and the EU have an uneasy relationship, with EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles already in place, plus Chinese taxes on exports of European brandy. But Xi Jinping has called on China and the EU to jointly, quote, oppose unilateral bullying practices. Ross Cullen, Paris.
Authorities in the Dominican Republic have called off the search for survivors following the roof collapse at a popular nightclub that killed more than 200 people. Ira Spitzer reports.
Breaking into tears at times, the head of the Dominican Republic's Emergency Operations Center said Thursday would be the last day of rescue and recovery efforts at the Jet Set nightclub in the capital, Santo Domingo. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, Jet Set's roof collapsed with hundreds inside. The death toll has now risen to at least 221 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, a local governor, and merengue artist Ruby Perez, who was performing at the time. 189 people were rescued from the club. The focus now shifts to mourning the dead and what will be a closely watched investigation into what caused the roof to collapse. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Ukraine's president claims that more than 150 Chinese nationals are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. The announcement comes after Kyiv said earlier in the week that 2 Chinese citizens had been captured. William Denslow reports from Odessa, Ukraine.
President Volodymyr Zelensky says he has precise data that more than 150 Chinese nationals are fighting with Russia, but claims the real number is far higher. In a social media post, he says this is a deliberate step towards expanding the war and accuses Russia of dragging out the fighting. China claims a neutral stance on the conflict, and its foreign ministry says claims that there are significant numbers of its nationals fighting with Russian forces is unfounded. Beijing adds that citizens are urged to stay away from conflict zones. Zelensky calls on Ukraine's partners to deprive Russia of the ability to continue the war, including through using soldiers from other nations. William Denslow, Odessa.
A US Russian citizen who was jailed in Russia for donating money to a Ukrainian charity has been freed in a prisoner swap. The former ballerina transferred $51 to an organisation that Moscow says was raising funds to provide arms to the Ukrainian military. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The amateur ballerina lives in Los Angeles but visited the Russian city of Yekaterinburg in early 2024 to visit family members. During that trip, she was detained by Russian authorities and sentenced to 12 years in prison. She was exchanged for a dual German-Russian citizen, Arthur Petrov, who was arrested in Cyprus in 2023 for allegedly exporting electronics to help the Russian military. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was the Week in Review.
Many thought that a politician with a publicly inebriated lifestyle would be unelectable. But Dave Tillis has proved them wrong, winning over voters by loudly rambling on about issues they care about.
Everybody's got to know that drunks are Americans, and we love America! And we want to make it awesome! Oh my God, let's do this! Let's be a senator! I love you guys!
Tillis' total fearlessness and lack of inhibition seem to speak to voters. This week, those supporters had something to celebrate as Senator Tillis proposed his first piece of legislation, the All Bus Stops Should Have Shelters bill.
But does that mean you deserve to wake up in the snow? Hell no. Let's make a shelter on all bus stops. Ow! This idea is genius!
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Give us a call. Get your thoughts on the air. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. I'd like to thank Brittany for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Brittany went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks again to Brittany and everyone else who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. In the studio tonight, you've got Stu,
Riley,
and Bonnie.
And we were talking previously about crypto regulations and kind of the Trump administration's opinion towards it.
So the Department of Justice put out a memo. I'm not sure if it was like Trump's decision or their decision, but it seemed like he would be involved because he came out and said he ended the war on crypto. And then the Department of Justice came out and said that under Biden, the Department of Justice was acting as regulators in the crypto industry and prosecuting people, and they're not going to do that anymore. I don't think they announced they're going to undo anything that they did to people, but they're not going to do that anymore, and that they should just let the actual like FinCEN regulators regulate things, which I don't want them to do that either, but unelected bureaucrats just deciding who wins and loses in a brand new industry.
And
like
they can
crypto.
change their mind at any time to, to favor their favorite political authoritarian wins, if you will.
And there's the damage you can see that they've done, and there's also the damage you can't see that they've done just from making it such a scary atmosphere within crypto that you don't know when you're going to step on a landmine, because these guys just make up the rules as they go, and they're not good at it.
That is such a good point. About all the people that didn't get into it because it seemed too risky, all the people that sold all their Bitcoin vending machines because they were like, yeah, I don't even know if I'm doing things legally anymore. Yeah, like you said, step on a landmine. All the businesses that decided, because of the chilling effect of other people getting arrested, that they didn't want to accept Bitcoin or cryptocurrency at their businesses. Yeah, that's an unseen consequence. It says that at the first ever White House Crypto Summit in March, co-hosted by the president's artificial intelligence and crypto czar, tech investor David Sachs, Trump pledged to end the Biden administration's war on crypto. Since then, the Securities and Exchange Commission has dropped more than a dozen cases against crypto firms. The Securities and Exchange Commission should also give Jeremy Kauffman and LBRY all their money back. Last month, both the Federal Deposit Insurance Corps and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency pledged to stop evaluating banks based on reputational risk, a practice that some venture capitalists have claimed unfairly debanked founders of cryptocurrency startups. Meanwhile, the president and First Lady Melania Trump have begun selling meme coins. It's kind of funny because you could call anything a meme coin. I mean, you could call any new cryptocurrency a meme coin just because people make memes about it. It's not like she was like, I know there's this meme about me and I'm going to make a cryptocurrency with its name and everything. It's like, meme coin is just slander at this point. You know?
It can be used as slander for sure.
Yeah. It's like saying, it's like the nice way to say S coin.
Yeah.
Or, radio friendly way to say it. So it says
trash coin.
Yeah, exactly. So it says Melania Trump, the president and First Lady Melania Trump have begun selling meme coins, a speculative venture that some industry insiders see as a conflict of interest. And in September, Trump and his sons announced the launch of World Liberty Financial, a crypto venture. The business plans to sell a stablecoin even as the White House works with lawmakers to develop legislation that would regulate these forms of cryptocurrencies that are backed by the dollar. In his memo to the Justice Department, Blanche, who was the head, sharply criticized crypto regulatory efforts under President Joe Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland. Quote, the prior administration used the Justice Department to pursue a reckless strategy of regulation by prosecution, unquote, and he called it ill-conceived and poorly executed. Seems like they did exactly what they were trying to do, but Blanche and the Justice Department would largely move away from pursuing litigation against cryptocurrency or crypto companies accused of violating securities, commodities, or banking secrecy laws. Those statutes were used to secure the convictions of 3 founders of cryptocurrency exchange BitMEX in 2022. Trump has issued pardons to all 3. So that's like a specific thing that they're saying they're going to move away from prosecuting, and those people got pardoned, and that's a great thing. But I just wish that he would look at every instance. It doesn't even seem that hard. Like, we got some of the smartest people we could get on the case to make a list of people targeted, and it's not even like 100 people. So I wish I could say where that was published. It was published in an article, but I don't really know the title of it or where it is. And that's just like what could be found, but I doubt it's like, oh, there's hundreds of thousands and there's no way to just pardon them all, There's been plenty of articles posted and people tweeting to Trump saying, hey, look at this, pardon Roger Ver, pardon Ian Freeman, and I don't even know if Roger Ver needs to be pardoned, just, drop the charges against him. The Samurai Wallet guys, all the really big ones. There are even people who have already done their sentences, unfortunately, but they should be pardoned so that way they're not felons anymore, like Aria DiMezzo and Mark his name is Risen on Twitter, so I forget his last name. Yeah, but he was just in an interview with Ariane Free Talk Cast, so that Mark. Hopkins. There are lots of people that probably, it seems like, oh, well, it's too late for me, it's not fair, like Ross got pardoned, and I had to go to prison. Well, they shouldn't still have a criminal record when all they did was sell Bitcoin.
I agree, and when they've served their time, essentially they should have that felony removed from their record.
Exactly, especially when it's now people who did the same thing are getting pardoned.
But that's the injustice of the so-called justice system.
It says that it was in 2022 that the Justice Department launched the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team with a goal of dismantling cryptocurrency exchanges and mixers that were used by criminals to hide the ownership and source of their ill-gotten funds. It's like, there could be, one person that does that, and I'm not saying there's only one. There could be millions, but I'm also saying there could be just like one person that says that, and of course that's how Washington Post does that with their funds, but that's how Washington Post is going to write about mixers. I'm sure the majority of people using mixers were doing it just because they wanted their financial privacy, because there's nothing implicitly wrong with wanting privacy. There's nothing implicitly wrong with the fact we have the curtains shut in the studio right now. Doesn't mean we're doing a crime in here.
Nope. We have the right to privacy.
So, as he disbanded the team Monday, Blanche said that rather than target those platforms for the acts of their end users, that's exactly what it was. It was somebody created a website, but the creators of the website were getting punished for the end users' actions if they did something wrong. It says that he said that rather than target those platforms for the acts of their end users, prosecutors should now prioritize the criminals themselves. Well, in Ian Freeman's case, they said that's too hard. They said it's too hard to go after the actual scammers.
Yeah.
They said, well, some of these people are in Africa, as if they don't brag about their extradition rates and all this stuff. I'm not saying I want them to do that, but
yeah, it's just absurd that they would rather blame Ian for the scammers than go after the actual scammers themselves and really track them down. If their military, their police force is so powerful, why don't they go after the actual scammers rather than little old Ian or young Ian?
Unless the actual scammer works for the police force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the old ladies. Honestly, that's what I've always thought.
And then they wouldn't have any. It wouldn't make any sense to go after them, would it?
Yep. If your goal was.
In fact, during the court proceedings, the prosecution may have had a Freudian slip where they said, we're not behind these underlying scams. And then he corrected it to, we know Ian's not behind these underlying scams, and went on to say some things.
Whoa, I don't remember that.
I remember it so vividly.
That's crazy. Wow.
My jaw fell onto the floor and I had to pick it up.
Yeah, that sounds like a Freudian slip, for real. Interesting. That's really funny. I want to find that. Like, maybe I can find it in the transcript. Control F it. I don't know.
I think it was during the first session of sentencing, if that helps.
Oh, okay. So it says officials had already transferred the founding head of the enforcement team, and we're talking about the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team that they disbanded. National Security Prosecutor Yun Young Choi to newly created Sanctuary Cities Division of the Justice Department in the first days of the Trump administration. I don't know what that means. The newly created Sanctuary Cities Division of the Justice Department. Okay. So Choi's team played a leading role in some of the department's most significant crypto cases, including against the owners of Tornado Cash, a cryptocurrency mixer alleged to have scrambled funds to obscure their true owners, and the prosecution of Avraham Eisenberg, who was convicted last year in a $110 million market manipulation case in Manhattan. Says it's hard to underestimate the importance this task force has had in pursuing some really huge crypto hacks and cases, said Yeshua Yadav, a Vanderbilt University law professor who closely follows cryptocurrency and financial markets. Oh, it just says Yesha. I was like, I didn't know people named their kids Yeshua. Sorry, it's just Yesha Yadav.
Huh.
Without this team in place, Yadav said intelligence regarding potential cryptocurrency crimes could become more diffuse, making it more difficult for the government to pursue incredibly nimble, very opportunistic actors in this space. Why isn't he crying about cash criminals, cash-using criminals? You know?
Yep.
That's a good question. I mean,
Cash does way more crime.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's easier to commit crime with cash than it is with crypto.
Mm-hmm. And it has to happen more often. It just has to. It's more widely used.
Crypto is harder to get access to. Well, I don't know if it's harder to get access to, but I don't know if what I'm trying to say here, but it seems like crypto is more of a tool for people with knowledge on how to use it. It's not like some criminal is going to hand a drug dealer or a killer cryptocurrency. They're going to hand them cash.
More often.
Yeah, if you wanted to accept cryptocurrency for something illegal, you would have to have a high amount of faith in the person giving it to you.
Yeah.
That they followed the proper protocols. Otherwise, they'd give you up as soon as they sent it to you.
It says that the case against Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm is set for trial later this year. So why aren't they just dropping it? I don't understand. It says, prosecutors have accused Storm of knowingly profiting from criminals, including North Korean hackers. Oh, that's not good. They always use that as a catch-all. Like, oh, you helped North Korea, and therefore it's treason and you're bad.
Yep.
But Storm has drawn support from cryptocurrency advocates who say he is being unfairly targeted for crimes committed by others using the platform he developed. Storm's attorney, Brian Klein, said he read Blanche's memo Tuesday as supporting the dismissal of the case. It sounds like it's me. As we've said all along, Klein said in an email, it should never have been brought. Justin D. Weitz, a Morgan Lewis partner and former Justice Department lawyer who oversaw cryptocurrency cases, called Blanche's announcement an abandonment of cases in the digital asset space. He said, what I see them doing here is recentering focus to be about victims and fraud instead of these technical violations. The overall goal should have always been, how are we protecting consumers who are getting ripped off in this wild west? If DOJ devotes resources to protect victims of cryptocurrency-related fraud and manipulation, that's going to be a good thing that will make the industry better. I don't really agree. Just because they do things more for their own ends than to protect people. If you think the cops don't actually live by their motto to protect and serve, which is true, do you really think these lawyers who prosecute people for things every single day and sit around thinking of creative ways to make up reasons why somebody else is a bad person, do you really think that they're in it to protect and serve? No.
Probably not us. They
definitely protect and serve the interests of the state, not us as individuals, and the banks, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
these psychopaths that think they own
the
you.
State, right? The banks pretty much tell the state what to do, as far as I know.
Yeah, they do.
So I don't know about that last little part there. Hopefully, they're not gonna try to reorganize and do things differently under a different name, but the thing is, I don't want it to sound like I'm saying like, oh, Trump's doing such a great job, because I've already pointed out 2 reasons why it's kind of weird that he's making all these claims about how he's easing up on cryptocurrency, and yet Ian Freeman's in prison.
Right.
Roman Storm's still being prosecuted later this year. Hopefully that will get dropped. It seems like I just went into reading that article thinking like, oh, well, that will obviously be dropped, right? Well, it hasn't yet, but interesting. And then, so Ian and then Roger Ver, his case needs to be dropped too.
Yep. Another guy is Joby Weeks. I don't know if you know of him.
No. I heard the name.
He's friends with Jeff Berwick and that crowd. He was in the he was early into the Bit Club thing. If that's familiar to anybody, but in 2020 he pled guilty to tax evasion and running an unregistered securities, and he's been waiting for sentencing still. He's on house arrest in Colorado, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, and he recently fired his attorney and sent a motion to dismiss, sent it directly to Pam Bondi. So hopefully that works out for him.
I hope so too.
I know he just had He just had his first child before all of this happened, so.
Wow.
It'd be great.
The government destroys families more than we realize.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't know how. Like, it seems like Trump kind of did the Ross Ulbricht thing, and he's like, "All right, that's good enough," and now it's down, on to business as usual. Like he just wanted to rope in the libertarian vote, and once he got that, it's good enough.
He let go of those big BitMEX people. I hadn't ever heard of them before, but from what I read, it sounded like a solid, they should have been let go. I think they were in prison, so I think they were let go.
I didn't even know the BitMEX people got scooped up.
If not actually arrested and in prison, their stuff got dropped. So
that's good. I like BitMEX.
I didn't want to act like Trump is doing such a great job, so I wanted to also talk about a different story. This is from CNN.com.
Another reputable news source.
Extremely reputable. Alex Jones calls CNN the CIA news network. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but he said that they're like CIA.
Oh,
I've also heard it called the Clinton News Network.
I wouldn't put it past them either.
It says Trump's retribution sends a chilling message to dissenters. And the thing about it is he ran on, rightly so, saying that he was having lawfare used against him.
Yep.
It really seemed like all the stuff they're doing in Europe right now is really scary, honestly. They're doing things like going after people who are running against their major politicians, and therefore, well, now you're being prosecuted for this, or you've actually been convicted of this, and now you can't run. They're doing all these weird little silly things. In Romania, there was an election. Somebody won the election, and then they just declared it invalid. It's like imagine if Trump had just won, and then Biden just declared it invalid.
That's insane.
Yeah, that just happened in Romania.
Wow.
So I would say that I agree with Trump with the whole, they were using lawfare against him, trying to get him off the ballots and all this stuff. It did seem like they were using the government, so I don't want to say they were using it as a weapon. It is a weapon. They were just directing it at him. Like the justice system, quote unquote, is just a weapon. It's not used as courts should be used to, determine who was wronged in a certain instance. It's not used like that at all anymore. It's used to destroy lives and put people into a system that the government can profit off of. But it seems like he's being kind of a hypocrite about it, because it says that Donald Trump's White House has a threatening message for anyone who might even be perceived to disagree with the president. Don't or else. Even though he has promised to end what he viewed as weaponization of the Department of Justice, Trump is treating people who disagree with him more like the enemy from within he talked about during the presidential campaign. The president took the unusual step this week of issuing official proclamations ordering the federal investigations of people who worked in his first administration. He's demanding free work from law firms who represented his perceived enemies, threatening to impeach judges, deporting campus protesters, and so much more. The underlying message for anyone who hasn't put all these things together is that dissent will not be tolerated under Trump 2.0. The official who said 2020 was a secure election, you're under investigation. Chris Krebs oversaw the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, during Trump's first term and affirmed the election Trump lost was free of fraud or tampering. That's exactly why Trump wants him investigated. As Trump puts it in the proclamation, Krebs falsely and baselessly denied that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. There is still zero compelling evidence the 2020 election was rigged or stolen. That's what CNN is saying. I don't necessarily agree. It seems like Ernie Hancock covered plenty of stuff that looks questionable, and you would call that evidence. And I also really don't care as much when it's like, oh, Trump is going after some politician. Like, they all deserve probably worse. I'm just saying it's showing hypocrisy. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that they say there's still zero compelling evidence. That's how they get around that. They just say, well, it's not compelling.
There's not compelling evidence.
Yeah.
But for some people, it is rather compelling. They still think the government should be investigating the stolen election.
Mm-hmm. But it says there is still zero compelling evidence the 2020 election was rigged or stolen, but the effect on Krebs' cybersecurity business could be real. And the message to anyone currently working to secure American elections is unmistakable. There will be consequences for crossing the president even when the president is alleging election fraud that does not exist. Okay, we'll get into more because that's not the most,
Yep.
Okay.
What do you think? Is there evidence of election fraud? I kind of think so. Give us a call. Let us know what you think. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Over the last week, US President Donald Trump's raft of tariffs led to tumbles on global stock markets, with shockwaves sent around the world. Stocks recovered somewhat by the end of the week, particularly following moves to pause tariffs for 90 days to give room for negotiations. European leaders welcomed the move to put a temporary halt to the duties. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called the pause an important step towards stabilizing the global economy. Pablo Gutierrez reports from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen says Europe remains ready for talks, but only under fair and predictable conditions. The shift comes after the EU announced tariffs on $24 billion worth of U.S. goods. The White House says the extra import taxes for Europe are on hold as the EU's countermeasures have not come into effect yet. They are scheduled to be collected from April 15th. The EU will still be subject to the U.S. 10% base rate tariff that came into force on April 5th. Pablo Gutierrez, Brussels.
Well, China is the exception to the tariffs pause, now in line for tariffs up to 145%. The Chinese president has called on the European Union to join it in resisting coercion as US trade tensions grow. Xi Jinping spoke on Friday after China raised its own tariffs on US goods to 125%. Ross Cullen reports.
As China's trade war with the United States escalates, Beijing is hoping to work together with the European Union to counter Donald Trump's global tariffs. China and the EU have an uneasy relationship, with EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles already in place, plus Chinese taxes on exports of European brandy. But Xi Jinping has called on China and the EU to jointly, quote, oppose unilateral bullying practices. Ross Cullen, Paris.
Authorities in the Dominican Republic have called off the search for survivors following the roof collapse at a popular nightclub that killed more than 200 people. Ira Spitzer reports.
Breaking into tears at times, the head of the Dominican Republic's Emergency Operations Center said Thursday would be the last day of rescue and recovery efforts at the Jet Set nightclub in the capital, Santo Domingo. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, Jet Set's roof collapsed with hundreds inside. The death toll has now risen to at least 221 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, a local governor, and merengue artist Ruby Perez, who was performing at the time. 189 people were rescued from the club. The focus now shifts to mourning the dead and what will be a closely watched investigation into what caused the roof to collapse. Ira Spitzer.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number is 603-283-6160. Let us know what you're thinking about. Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny Liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
Riley.
And it's Bonnie.
And I've got a Liberty-minded hoodie on right now.
That's a sharp hoodie. I like it.
I wore the one that's just pullover yesterday, and I was very warm.
Nice.
They are pretty warm.
I was cold in here.
Yeah.
I don't normally wear like pullover hoodies, but that one is actually comfortable. Like sometimes they make me just feel all like claustrophobic, but I mean, I'm not even just trying to sell it. Like I never wear them, and then yesterday I was like, actually, I could wear this one more often. It's just been hanging up for a long time.
Yeah.
I love the zipper ones because you feel so much more free.
Yeah, I like the zipper too. Definitely prefer the zipper to the pullover.
I even like the look more of a zipper one, but tons of people my age prefer the pullovers. It's almost like this like thing that you'll get looked at sideways if you prefer the zippers. It's silly.
That's kind of silly.
Imagine younger, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to the phone where we've got some callers. On-screen caller in Michigan, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, it's Dodger here in Michigan.
Hi, Dodger.
Hey, I haven't heard you guys mention this on the show, but it's pretty local to where you guys are at. Did you guys hear about the content creator that was peeing on food in one of your guys' grocery stores there in Keene?
Yes.
My grocery store, where I get most of my food legitimately. Yes. It was funny because I heard about it from my sister who's in Oregon. She said that her boyfriend like bounded into the room and was like, Elsbeth, doesn't Bonnie shop at the Co-op? And she was like, why? And yes, there was this story, this girl named Kelly with an I, Kelli, Tedford, who lives in Keene, New Hampshire. She's a OnlyFans content creator, and she and also Reddit. She posts on Reddit. She took some pee into the Co-op, the Monadnock Co-op, which is a grocery store in Keene, and she put it on certain items in the store, and she filmed it, and so the cops instantly recognized the place and went and arrested her, and then they found out from there that she had been claiming to have done similar things in stores all over all over Keene for the last 2 years. But the thing is, like, this seems to be like a step up. Like, this is the first time she went and tried to just put it on items. Before that, she claimed she stood in Walmart and peed herself, and was like laughing about people having to clean it up and stuff, and like saying that she would just pee herself at work, and claimed she peed in her boss's Keurig. Or not Keurig, it's a type of water bottle.
Okay.
Like so it goes a lot deeper than.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does.
A bunch of the content was deleted, but I could still see a bunch of the titles and comments from her Reddit, so that's where I got the information about like peeing in her boss's Keurig thing, or not Keurig, that's not the word, but I'd like Contigo, that's not the word either, but one of the water bottles. And she said that her boss will walk in the room and say, "Why does it smell like pee in here?" And she was like laughing that she had peed herself. A total freak. And her arraignment was April 7th, and I wasn't able to go. I wanted to go film it, but I had to go do other things. And I wanted to just glare at her, but instead I'm going to find out when her actual trial is, and I'm going to go film it. It became national news because it's so weird. But the thing is, for anybody that is worried about shopping at the Co-op, it was discovered that day. They called anybody because luckily it's like a membership thing. you don't have to be a member. So if you weren't a member and you didn't get the news and you bought one of those specific items, well, maybe you would have consumed something. But everybody else was contacted that day and it was recalled. They threw away that stuff. They did a cleaning of the whole building. I think they might have even been closed for like a day or something. And that really sucks for the co-op. They do a pretty good job over there. And I really like shopping with over there, even though they're all leftists and sometimes I get annoyed with them. Yeah, it was so messed up what she did to them. And it was a sexual thing. So I really hope... Okay, I don't want to say that. I was going to say I really hope that she gets charged for some kind of like sexual thing because she was outright saying it was a sexual thing. But maybe just, whatever is fair. For she could have poisoned people,
Well, this is... Like, libertarians could say, well, you could do whatever you want with your own property, but this is not her property, so she can't do whatever she wants.
And there was a sexual motivation, so is it like should she be like a sex offender for it? I don't know about that.
I don't know either. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Well, I just think it's really kind of screwed up that because this isn't the only thing like in the national news about people actually tainting people's food. Because recently there was another guy that took like bug spray recently and like sprayed it on a bunch of produce. Again, this is like a TikTok thing.
Yeah,
and
I think I heard about that one.
It was in Arizona, I want to say. And he took and actually like sprayed a bunch of bug spray, and posted it on TikTok.
So stupid.
Is this, that could...
Well, this has been going on for a while. There were the people that used to open up the freezer and pull out the ice cream and pull the lid off and lick it and then put it back.
Yeah, that comes to mind too.
Do you guys have any thoughts on what's causing people to do messed up stuff like this?
Our society has lost the celebration of slapping somebody who's acting a fool.
That might actually be true.
Based on the non-aggression principle, do you think it's acceptable to slap a person that does something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. I don't think, you don't want to cause somebody permanent physical damage for having done so, but you want to let them know that they're acting a fool and it's not going to be acceptable.
All right. Well, I just wanted your guys' thoughts on that. So with that, y'all have a good night.
Thanks, Dodger.
Thanks for the call.
So let's just use the ice cream as an example. That's kind of like spitting in someone's mouth. You know that that's a product that someone intends to put in their mouth and you spit in it. And if somebody spit in my mouth, I would find it completely acceptable for me to slap them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, public shaming needs to come back.
If a stranger just spit into my mouth, they might get a little closer to permanent physical damage than just a slap.
It is actual, I can't remember the difference, assault or battery, but it's considered the same as slapping someone. So like if you slap someone, if that's called battery, then spit is also called battery because it's a part of you, unwanted contact from a part of you to the part of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, that's just the legalese justification, but also just it's common sense. If somebody spits in your mouth, if fighting words is a thing, then spit in your mouth is
if someone's going to spit in your mouth, they better know that they are risking getting slapped.
Exactly. At the least, seriously, I would understand if somebody went further than slapping someone who spit in their mouth. There was this thing years ago, I think it was 2015 or 14, where Ariana Grande went into a donut shop, and I'm sure she wants this to just, blow over and everybody to forget about it forever, but I hated her after this, but I kind of did forget about it for a while, and I do like some of her music, but Ariana Grande went to a donut shop with some of her friends. The owner went into the back, and she licked one of the donuts and put it back and said, "I hate America."
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know why she said I hate America in that instance, but that was obviously the thing that made the news, pop star Ariana Grande says she hates America. That's the thing people are mad about, but also that she licked the donut and put it back. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I don't care that she says she hates America. Don't lick a donut and put it back.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go back to the phones. We've got David in New Mexico. What's on your mind tonight, David?
In New Hampshire. But in the irony of it is that she licked a Danish.
Oh.
David, do you think it's okay to slap somebody for acting foolish?
I think it's okay to slap somebody for no reason at all. So, yes.
What?
David's a fan of slapping.
Huh? What?
David's a fan of slapping. He says, bring back the slap.
I love it. And hair pulling, too.
Okay.
All righty then.
I just...
What'd you call in about, David?
I already told you. New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. I forgot.
Are you on your way up here?
Say what?
Are you on your way up here?
It depends on how you define on my way.
Oh.
Traveling up here right now.
Have you picked up your stuff and started traveling yet?
Taking the amount of miles between New Hampshire and yourself down every minute. Every hour.
I just took one step to the east.
Dang it. See it.
Yes.
All right. There you go. On his way.
I'm in the process, but I haven't loaded up a vehicle. Well, actually, I have loaded up a vehicle, but I haven't gotten in a loaded up in vehicle and headed east to a significant distance. Is that a sufficient answer?
You know it's northeast, right? I'm just messing with you.
Do I know it's northeast? You know that I hold an airline transport license.
I'm just messing with you. It's just funny to me that you just keep saying east.
East, yeah. Well, I'm gonna
going to Austin.
Maybe that's my plan. Maybe I want to head exactly 090 until I hit water and then make a left turn.
I guess you could do that.
So, yeah.
End up in Portsmouth, which should still be called Strawberry Bank. Apparently, Portsmouth, New Hampshire used to be called Strawberry Bank, and they just changed it from the best name ever to a stupid name, and I hate that.
Yeah.
When did they do that?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what year, but I found that out recently. I was like, that is so weird.
So let's call it Strawberry Bank as an act of protest.
I know, it's such a cuter name. There should still be a place called Strawberry Bank. Apparently there's like a park there that they call Strawberry Bank and you can go to, but it needs to be a town name again.
Well, if it was still called Strawberry Bank, then it would be a gay town like P-Town.
I'm pretty sure that Portsmouth is kind of gay. I could be wrong.
Oh, is it? Oh, man, now I got to move.
You don't live there.
Huh? Well, yeah, I do. I rented a mooring ball for my sailboat in Portsmouth.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what you don't know what a mooring ball is?
No.
Ask a gay guy. He'll tell you.
It's a gay thing? I figured it was a ship thing.
Well, it could be. You know those gays. They take names for anything that has like ball in it, and they turn it into all kinds of innuendo stuff. That's how they operate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the ticket. So New Hampshire. So an opportunity for you to sell New Hampshire, which is what you're supposed to be doing. Free State Project, get people to move there. I'm right so far, right? Free State Project wants people to move there.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the? Okay. All right. So if people are going to move there, so then they have some logistical issues. Like one interesting thing is the Free State, the Live Free, no car insurance required, for instance. And one thing and once again, none of us have to talk to each other. I can go on the internet and find the answer, right away. But, in the interest of or continuing to talk human to human instead of human to AI. Yeah. So I guess human to a guy instead of human to AI.
Fine, I won't talk to you, David.
Say what?
Fine, I won't talk to you. I'm not a guy.
Yeah, you're one of the guys, man.
Did you just assume Bonnie's gender?
Yeah, I think he did just assume my gender was male.
Don't you want to be one of the guys?
No. I'm just kidding. Okay, I did derail your actual topic, though.
You did. So wait a minute. So if there's a group of friends out to dinner and Bonnie's in that group and somebody says, "Hey, you guys," Bonnie doesn't look?
Well, you said a guy. So if you just called me a guy, I'd be like, what? But if you said you guys, then I would find that acceptable. And if you called me dude to my face as like just like when you're talking to me, that doesn't bother me. But if Ian called me dude, I would stop all like what he's doing and be like, "Why'd you just call me dude?" But he wouldn't.
He'd get cut off, huh?
He'd get cut off.
All right. Okay, so now car insurance. You're not required to have it when you're driving around in New Hampshire if you live in New Hampshire, right?
That's true. And another thing that they're working on right now that's about to be decided in the Senate, and then it'll have to go on to the governor, but the House did pass it, is getting rid of the inspection sticker scam. That might be gone soon. That'd be a
I don't
big
like
one.
that inspection. I was going to ask you about that, too. I don't like that inspection sticker scam.
It's a bad one here in New Hampshire, but it might be gone soon, depending on what the Senate decides, and then the governor, I'm sure, will pass it if the Senate does.
Right, yeah, because you don't need it anyway, because if there's something that appears to be a safety hazard, well, they can already just pull you over for a safety hazard. So, what do you need the inspection thing for? Anyway, so insurance. So, but what happens if you are a resident of New Hampshire and you have a vehicle that is registered and titled in New Hampshire, not in Montana, which I have another question. I have a question on that thing. But then you drive out of state. Are you legal to drive in other states that do require their resident to have auto insurance?
No.
Do you have to have insurance at that point?
Yeah, the other state cops will require proof of insurance.
Oh.
Wow. I did not know that.
Right. And so that protection of not having the relinquishment of a responsibility to pay for extortion, whatever, insurance, that's
that
only
ends
good
at the imaginary line they call a border. Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's what I assumed, and I
never thought about it, but I have insurance for just I think it's a good idea.
Yep, I got insurance too.
It may be a good idea, but you shouldn't be forcing it on people.
Yeah.
Good ideas do not require force.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I suppose
it's cheaper here too.
What?
Auto insurance is cheaper in New Hampshire because it's not required.
Yeah, mine, when I went from Texas to here, I was shocked. I don't remember the numbers anymore, sorry, but it went down such a significant amount. I was like, why did it go down so much? And it was just for moving to New Hampshire.
Yep.
Is it cheaper than mine?
Probably.
I don't know off the top of my head.
If you have auto insurance.
Did Stu say probably?
Unless you don't have auto insurance.
I have auto insurance. Is it cheaper than mine? Probably.
I don't know. How much do you pay?
I don't know. Bonnie's got to bet me $10,000 for it. So bet me, Bonnie.
I don't even know what mine is off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, so Stu, give me an example of what a really good price on auto insurance would be.
Are you like grandfathered into something from the 70s
well,
or
I
something?
can tell you that in Arizona I paid like $85 a month, and out here I pay like $40 a month.
Okay, let's see. What do I pay? I pay no more than $20 a month.
Well, the other thing is you could have like no coverage or like not good coverage, and maybe Stu has better coverage than you.
Well, no, my coverage is better than everybody's coverage because I pay the least amount of extortion, so that makes mine the best.
No, I mean like you might be less covered for certain situations, and so that would definitely cause the price to go down.
So I'm being extorted less, is what you're saying.
Well, you're complaining about my use of the word best, but I mean better coverage.
Well, the way they figure out auto insurance rates
like that joke,
is kind of like
when a woman is complaining.
The way they figure out auto insurance rates is kind of it's sort of a mystical process where they involve like shamans and things like that. Not really, but it's kind of a nonsensical process, and they just kind of throw out a number. So if you shop
it's
it around,
misogynist. I mean, not misogynist.
If you shop it around
Opposite.
enough, you can find lower insurance rates, and then you can just continue to keep shopping rates until you find your less than $20 a month rate, as David has.
What's the opposite of misogynist against men? Misandrous? It's misandrous too, because men get charged more than women.
Something like that. And then Bonnie, so the doing the Montana thing, when you set up an LLC, and I know that you didn't do it, you had somebody do it for you, so I can already predict the answer is that you don't know.
I don't know anything about it, honestly. But go ahead and ask.
I was going to ask, so when you set up an LLC, you have to check what category of LLC it is. What is the purpose of this LLC? And you check a box of whatever the categories available are, and there's like half a dozen or 10 categories to choose from, depending on what kind of business the LLC is for. And so I was curious as to what box you check when you do that, but you don't know the answer, so never mind, David, shut up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't do it. Like, that LLC already existed when my car was added to it, and I sold my car to the Shire Free Church. It's not like I just did it myself.
Okay. I thought I had another. Oh, you were talking about private property earlier, and in a previous show, like a week ago or so, Bonnie made a comment which I picked up on because I'm interested in this stuff. You've also been talking about Utah, not only in this show but in previous ones, and comparing land ownership. Federal government, state government, private ownership, et cetera, et cetera. And Bonnie, in a previous show recently, said something about as compared to Utah, when you're in New Hampshire, there's private property everywhere. You can't just. What you liked about Utah is you could just get out of the car and go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me more about that. Is it? And I'll tell you a Texas story, which relates to your conversation earlier in this program, if we get that far.
Okay.
So how restricted is New Hampshire for finding? And I know we talked earlier about Mount Monadnock and other places. And obviously you can go for a hike there, but as compared to out west, I can walk out my door and I can go any direction. I can literally get in my vehicle.
I can answer this. I lived in the middle of nowhere, much like you. Like, I lived in the middle of nowhere. It was 48 miles from Tooele west towards Nevada, and you'd hit a military base, and I couldn't even go deeper into the military base than 5 miles in, and then you have all of the size of Rhode Island past that no one could go into, no-fly zone, because it's a military base called Dugway Proving Ground. I lived there, and I loved leaving the gate and going onto a mountain, or just taking a right turn and going towards this old Pony Express station and driving wherever I wanted, driving whatever direction I wanted if my car could go on it, and digging for geodes, or just like looking at things, like looking at rocks and climbing up a mountain, looking at cool views, and not seeing another person the whole entire day. That just doesn't exist here, because one, it's smaller, and two, it's like anytime I've asked anyone where are some cool places to go walk around, it's like they will tell you, oh, and it has a name, like, oh, go to Otter blah 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 beach, go to Goose Pond, and there's like, those things can be really fun. I like the Rhododendron State Park, I think it is called, in Fitzwilliam. I like Goose Pond and Keene, but it feels so leashed, and there are literally signs that say in most of these things, especially the Monadnock trails, they say like no dogs on this trail. It's like, what?
What about a guide dog?
Maybe there are exceptions for that. I'm not sure. And there are people that will like be like, they say no dogs on this trail if you pass them like breaking the rules. Like, Karen.
Yeah.
I pick up after my dog.
Yeah, I can confirm what Bonnie is saying. Like, even in the Salt Lake Valley, we had at the west end of 53rd South, we had a large dirt area where you could just take your 4-wheel drive out there and mess around all day, or motorcycles or whatever you wanted. Easy escape up into the mountains, which were just endless, tons of room. And here in New Hampshire, you don't even have BLM land where you can go boondock for a couple of weeks. It's just non-existent.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, is there any national forest land in New Hampshire?
Oh, I thought that White Mountain National isn't that national forest.
I don't think there's.
It might be state.
Maybe I'm confused. I don't. The way I remembered it when I was looking it up, there was no national forests or national parks in New Hampshire. I could be wrong about that. Maybe
I could be wrong too.
Maybe I just found that there was nowhere to boondock. Anyways, thanks for the call tonight, David. We hope to see you up here soon.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to meet.
This has been Free Talk Live. and we will be back next weekend.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury.